Well, hello, everybody. We're here. We got 10 of us on screen and possibly Slick Six Guns if he gets the link. But anyway, this is the History Lovers live chat. It's the biggest chat we've ever done. So if we have any technical difficulties, just hang with us. Okay. Slick is trying to tell me I can't have more than 10 people in the studio. So we'll see how that works. So, yeah. Anyway, this is what we got here for tonight. If we don't get Slick Six Guns on tonight, we'll have him on another chat. And so anyway, let's go down here, and we have our normal guys here. We have Snapper and Duke. You all know them. Go ahead, Snapper.
Howdy, guys.
You ain't, Duke.
You have changed.
Over here, we got AR American.
How you doing tonight?
All right. Introduce yourself, Black Powder Shooter. Can you hear us?
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, bro? Good to be here. A little delay. Speaking of technical difficulties.
How about you, Doug?
Hi, I'm Doug of Classic Guns Today. I enjoy shooting classic guns, historical and otherwise. And I'm
We
a big
got
history guy.
we got the Plowboy down there. What do you do, Plowboy?
I trade guns.
Yeah, he just don't trade them to me.
He just trades them all day.
And I make non-shooting gun videos.
Yeah,
A lot.
And the next three guys really need no introduction because they basically own the Western history era of the YouTube. But we got Santee from Arizona Ghost Riders. And we have Blackie Thomas from, I guess it's just Blackie Thomas, or is it still Shyman's Forge?
It's Blackie Thomas.
And then we, of course, down here have everything Black Powder.
Everything black powder.
The upcoming, well, not even upcoming, he's pretty well on top of it, man. You got one of the fastest growing Black Powder channels I ever seen. How did that occur? Just overnight? What happened?
Go ahead.
I don't know. I'm just lucky. That's all.
I think it had something to do with a YouTube short or something.
You ain't supposed to say you're lucky. You're supposed to just tell them you're that good.
And now that's
Just a
something
little.
you and Plowboy got in common because I think both of you kind of took off on 40 grain load, 45 Colt bullets.
I don't know. That
That's
one
the-
video's got like 1.8
That's the only
million
load I
views.
shoot anymore.
Do what?
So that's the only load I shoot anymore. 40 grains of 777 over 255 grain hard cast bullet.
Do any of you guys still get people saying that it's not possible?
Oh yeah.
Still?
Oh yeah. Not quite every day, but pretty close.
Yeah, I get to hear how it can't be done every now and then.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I had a guy that had a Ruger Blackhawk, and of course he's shooting factory ammunition. That's all he's shooting. And he's talking about how powerful it was. And I said, you do realize that off the shelf is about a half power load compared to what the black powder load was. Oh, no. This is not a. How about I load you some? So I loaded him over 250. He steps up there and he pulled the trigger. That gun bucked and he looked at me and he thought the gun blew up. I said, that's what Granddaddy was shooting, boy. You're shooting the little light loads.
That's
The first time I shot that load, I did it with 777, and I did a video on the old channel.
Yeah.
I had never shot black powder cartridge before, and I shot it out of that curse conversion, that 1851 Navy, 40 grains 777. And I'll tell you what, I shot it, and I turned around right on video and said, that's a stout load.
Oh, yeah.
Hiking or anything else, you know.
Yep.
First time I shot it, I was basically like 45 Colt is now my favorite cartridge.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine being on the receiving end of it.
Oh, no.
Okay.
That's fine. I don't even want to even think about that.
You did a video about that, Santee, today.
I did. That's all I can think about all day is getting hit with a bullet.
Well, you think about that. That's he's all right. I got the dog barking in the background, but you guys might just have to bear with that. He's on the. That is Sam Colt back there on the couch.
Oh, that's cool.
So anyway, when you think about it, that round right there, and Duke and I have talked about it a lot. I know nowadays we now have the Walker 45-55, but what they were loading in the old days, I am convinced a 7.5 inch single action Army is pretty close to a Walker because it's shooting a heavier conical than 60 grains in a round ball. So I think foot pounds pretty close.
I just
What'd you
noticed
say,
that 40 grain load, I would not be worried about hiking in bear country or cougars or anything with that 40 grain load. I have no doubt beyond my mind that it would do what it needed to do. You know,
Especially with the 777.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that 777's a little stouter than Pyrodex.
Yeah,
you bet.
I don't know.
read,
Reading about Hickok shooting a bear with a dragoon and it just kind of bouncing back. I don't know, man. That kind of terrifies me. I don't like playing with bears. They're scary and
I
they're big.
don't believe that Dragoon it bounced off if it was full
Yeah.
load.
We had a talk
Yeah.
about that.
44 Magnum bounce
That was
off
an
the bear's
armor-plated
skull,
bear.
so it can happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would believe it if it was from anybody else, or I wouldn't believe it if it was anybody else but Hickok. That guy literally hit everything he shot at. So I don't believe he missed, but yeah, he got tore up
Man.
pretty bad for his.
So what you're trying to say is Bear got a harder head than I do, huh?
Not quite,
Murphy's
no.
Law. There was a case down here many years ago where an individual, a cop shot him with a 45 ACP with a hardball. Hit him in the head. Guy went down, thud. Thought it's all over, right? A lot of blood. Guy woke up, jumped up, and took off running. It hit right above the eye, went under the skin, rolled all the way around to the back of the skull, and came out.
I've seen that with
Penetrate the skull,
5.56.
just knocked him cold.
I've seen that with 5.56, where it will actually stick to an object and go around it instead. Yeah, that's actually quite common, more than you would believe.
Mhm.
Hey, as far as the bear thing goes,
Yeah.
Elmer Keith writes in Six Gun about shooting grizzly bears in the head with black powder 45 Colt and killing them dead.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Wow.
Depends on your bullet. The bear that I saw with the 44 mag was a hollow point, and it just looked like somebody had taken a set of clippers and went right down the middle of his skull. But
Lane.
you're also
So
hitting
like a
them
hard
with
ball,
stroke.
it need to be a very hard lead, or you know.
Mhm.
But
Anytime
you hit
I'm,
a gas and you hit them in the eye, they're done.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
anytime I'm hunting with a handgun, I use a hard cast lead bullet. I don't like using hollow points or even jacketed bullets. I really like what them hard casts do.
Well, when California still had grizzlies, they're on the flag, and there's something that I remember reading about one of the ranchers out there who shot a grizzly with a 45 Colt, 7.5-inch barrel Cavalry model, and talked about it was a through and through penetration of the chest cavity on him. Of course, he was only like 15 yards out. It had killed a cow. He rode up. It was paying him no attention. It was eating the cow. And he shot it and went through and through. Of course, then it got mad and chased him and his horse. But he did kill it.
Well,
When I-
you got to bear in mind that 44 Magnum's a lighter bullet anyway. Grant you it's traveling faster, especially if it's a hollow point, it gets way lighter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could see
When
that.
I,
You want that heavy 45 Colt bullet penetration.
I used to live in Alaska, and they had the bear hunting thing. It was kind of pretty big. A lot of people would love to do it, and they had this little class you would go to see if you were allowed to shoot, like go hunting a grizzly. Because if you couldn't shoot a moving target that's running towards you so fast with a, I think we had like Remington 700 action kind of, gun.
Bless you.
And the video they showed us when they shoot this grizzly, and it was like 150 yards away. I had never seen the violence of an animal like I saw to that grizzly when it got shot. And it almost made it to them at 150 yards. And they shot it 4 times before it dropped. And it dropped within like 25 yards of them. And I was pretty much done with hunting grizzly. I never wanted to do it after I saw the video. I was like, I was done.
What round were they using?
I don't remember, but it's stout. It was pretty stout. It was lever action guns. I really don't. I think it was like 500.
The 500
Winchester Magnum.
Yeah.
Have you ever read the actual accounts of the real Grizzly Adams?
Yep.
I have not.
He hunted with a swivel gun that was a shotgun and a rifle, a Bowie knife, and a 51 Navy, and a special trained horse. He would bait the animal out. He would try to place a shot to break a shoulder. with the rifle while on horseback, turn and take off on horseback. Bear chased him. He would swivel it around at point X. He would rein the horse in, jump off, lay down the 51 Navy, lay down the buoy, bring up the shotgun barrel loaded with small pellets and aim for the eyes. He wanted to blind it. At about 25 yards out, he would fire, throw the gun, pull up the 51 Navy and fan it, and finally bring up the Bowie knife and hit it in the throat as it rolled over him. He killed hundreds of grizzly. He was 5'2". The Honeys were as big as a bus.
Yeah, his is way bigger than mine.
I'll tell you what, the grizzly guys I know don't believe in hunting.
I'll tell you what sold me on hard cast bullets for handgun hunting was first time I got a hold of some buffalo boar 44 special.
Right.
I shot a couple hogs with that, and it was one shot dropping them. And I after that, I never used a jacketed or a hollow point handgun bullet for handgun hunting. After that, it was only hard cast bullets.
There's a break point down here in my neck of the woods. The biggest animal I'm gonna come up with is a hog. That might be up to 1,000 pounds. You know, a round ball and cabin ball revolver, dead soft lead, will flatten out a little bit and try to stay in the body, therefore dumping all the energy from impact instead of penetrating. But when you're looking at such a big animal, now I got to have penetration to get to them vitals. That's where the conicals come in. So I know guys love hollow points, but you're saying with a hollow point, I do not want to over penetrate. But if I'm looking at 1,000-pound hog, I'll take penetration over that stopping, because I'm scared it's going to hit a bone, it's going to hit a head, it's going to stop short of the important vitals. So I want penetration then. I'll take a solid. You know, I got a friend that he makes bronze bullets to go into a 44 special for hunting hog. He wears out barrels, but he gets hog too.
Why is bronze better? I don't know enough about metallurgy. Is it
bronze doesn't deform. It's just soft enough that it'll grip the rifling and go where a steel would not. You know, it's just soft enough. And he tried solid copper for a while, but it would deform out. And he hunts 500 up pound hog. He wants to hit them in the head and bust the skull and they drop. He's hunting a stopping gun. And it's a 44 special, but it's loaded up to 44 Magnum ballistics. It's a Dan Wesson with changeable barrels. He's replaced the barrel 3 times that I'm aware of.
I like them solid coppers in that 500 Nitro Express I got. I mean, them things will penetrate pretty good.
Oh yeah.
Are those the extreme penetrators? The ones that look like a Phillip head on the front?
No, they're just a Barnes copper solid for dangerous game, lion hunting, stuff like that.
Well, I'm impressed with looking through history, and I know about half of you guys are on the eastern side of the Mississippi, and the other half are on the west. But looking through history, the caliber changes as soon as you cross that river into St. Louis is just amazing. Because you talk about hunting bears. Well, Davy Crockett hunted black bears from 1825 to 1835, killed 125 of them with a 41 caliber rifle.
wow?
But as soon as you got west of St. Louis, everybody was shucking those squirrel rifles as quick as they could. What do you think's the most common caliber, Duke? The 58? 50 would be
58 and up. There's a lot of 62s that are mentioned, but even 54 was pretty common. If you had a 50, that was probably about the minimum you wanted to have.
Well, Lewis and Clark's expedition, they were, what was it, 54s, right?
Yeah, and then they had the Girardoni rifles, and for some reason, my mind's saying that those were 45.
Yeah, but I'm talking about they carried the first run of the Harper's
the
Ferry.
1803 Harper's Ferry.
That's right. Yeah, that was 54. Because they also mentioned there's one of the journals from there where they come across the first grizzly bear they'd ever come across and shot it over 15 times in the head, and the thing kept trying to kill them.
They saw it from the boat. They stopped. It was up in a berry patch eating. 2 guys got out with the 54s, shot. The second guy shot. Long story short, like 1,800 grains of lead having passed through this bear. It had finally chased one of them out in the river and was swimming, and a guy ran to the back of the boat with an axe and hit it in the head to kill it with an axe. That's whenever he wrote in the journal, it has a grizzled appearance and is to be left alone. Serious, read it.
Yeah, yeah, I've read, yeah, but I forgot that part.
Yeah, but that's where it got the name. When they had talked, they said there was, I'm probably got the name wrong, but it's Matu and Inamatu. Matu meant bear. Inamatu, the real bear.
Right.
And so when they saw it, and it was just those scraggly looking things sitting up there eating, they stopped because they wanted some bear steak, bear fat. Fat was a hard commodity to get. So yeah, it looks good. It's eating berries. They pulled the boats up. Two guys went up and kicked it off. And they had figured out basically, I think 8 or 9 times they'd shot it, 9 or 10. And it finally dawned on them, all it does shooting it is tell them where you're at. And it keeps charging. So leave it the hell alone. Followed the guy into the river. And the guy got on the back end of the boat with an axe and hit it in the skull and killed it. That's when he wrote.
How many were there shooting at it?
Leave it alone.
How many were there shooting at it? Like, does it say in the account?
These were good hunters. These were good shooters.
How many, though?
It talked about the first shot hit it in the shoulder, which was a common Eastern trade, was you'd shoot a black bear in the shoulder. So if it didn't go down, you broke its shoulder and it couldn't get away from you. And so he shot it and said the bear turned and bit itself, like a gnat bit me or something. And then it turned and looked at the hunters and come around, and the second hunter shot. And it was like throwing tissue paper at it. It just keep coming. They kept
That's
shooting.
the one day I don't want that air rifle at all.
Is that the one?
It's a common fact that bears take angel dust, PCP. So
yeah,
it's a little known fact. Duke knows about it. So
I thought they were tweakers. I thought that's why you had such a problem putting them
yeah.
on.
Okay, you guys in the northern country. Here's the pop quiz. If you're on halfway of a ridge and suddenly a grizzly pops up in front of you, do you run uphill or downhill?
I ain't in the northern country, and I'm glad of it.
Well,
there's a reason you run one direction.
There ain't no grizzlies in Michigan, so I ain't got to worry about that.
What I was always told is when you come across a grizzly in the woods, the best thing to do is stick your head between your legs and kiss a certain part of your anatomy goodbye.
I was always told don't run from it. Whatever you do, don't run.
If you had to run, a grizzly cannot run downhill very well because he's actually top heavy on the front and his butt kind of overrides him and he loses his balance. So he cannot run flat out downhill very well. He'll tumble. And you can't outrun one down a steep bank if you're running. You can't outrun him up.
Or jumping.
But you can run downhill.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm 51 years old, but I promise you, if there's a grizzly bear chasing me, I'm going to break some land speed records.
But yeah,
if it's in the snow, what happens is they turn into a big snowball and they rode down. You've seen those cartoons.
Like an avalanche.
A horse will always, if you let him, a horse will always run just as fast as he can uphill. Horses hate to run downhill. I mean, they break their feet, they stop. And if you do get running downhill, that's a good time to trip and go down. But I was going to say, we're still talking about grizzly bears. Santee, what's the record of the grizzly bears down there? Because I read about it in Dead Man's Walk. I know there was lots of grizzly bears down in the Southwest.
We have brown bears. I don't think we have a whole lot of grizzly bears south of like Phoenix. I don't think we have any.
I didn't know if there's a historical record of it or not, like them coming out of California back in the day.
Coming from northern Arizona.
We have a lot of brown bears, but I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of grizzlies out here, but I'll look into it.
Yeah.
Did you really read that?
Yeah, well, in Dead Man's Walk, they talk in Larry McMurtry, Dead Man's Walk.
McMurtry, right.
Yeah, that's why I've just always thought about it, because they talk about the grizzly coming on their, well, I guess they're in New Mexico, not all the way. Yeah, they're not all the way down there, but yeah, I was wondering if you had them in the Southwest back then.
No, we have polar bears down here, so. Different.
But speaking, I tell you what, because that is the record of Wild Bill heading down through Kansas. He come down here through Fort Laramie on the Fort Larned on the Santa Fe Trail. heading down south somewhere. He run into that cinnamon bear and tried to dispatch it with a dragoon pistol, and it did not work in his favor.
That was back when we had bears.
Yeah. So I got to ask this question because I know that Black Powder Shooter 44 has a lot of experience with the big walkers and stuff, but he's also had experience with an 18-inch walker. You think that would improve his odds any if he'd had that, Black Powder?
Probably not. Just marginally.
It's just a marginal advantage. It's just marginally better.
Yeah, that's been my conclusions with that. I mean, you might get a little bit more power, a little bit more penetration, but when it comes to a bear, yeah. Be better off with something else.
Yeah.
How would you
Maybe
like
running downhill. You'd be better off running downhill at that point, just leaving the walker on the ground.
How would you like to be that guy with the brown vest who has the bears charging you? You go to shoot him, and all of a sudden you just hear that click.
Well, have you ever seen the end of that movie, Legends of the Fall? It was a good death.
Yeah.
Oh, what the hell? Turn it around, make a club. It's a good death.
I don't know if there's any good situation in any good way in that situation. Duke, don't you come across grizzly bears up there in your job the last couple of years, a time or two?
No, we've got black bears in this area. The grizzlies are more up a little further north and to the west of us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we had beings that this last summer was so dry and the conditions up in the mountains were just so terrible. We had 7 black bears spotted. My friend and hunting buddy, she had one shot out of the tree in her backyard because the game warden didn't want to have to deal with it again. But yeah, between moms with cubs, it was 7 total that were spotted.
Wow.
Wow.
I don't know about the rest of you guys, but whenever we get a bear sighting, it makes the news, right? They come down out of the mountains in the summer looking for that picnic basket, you know.
Right.
And
What's funny is,
hey, boo boo, you know.
one morning,
and then they follow the bear everywhere for like a week to find out where it's going and what it's doing, and then they relocate it. So,
in the past 15 years, black bear have started to make something of a comeback here in North Louisiana. And in fact, when I first built my home here, it was just raw land. I spotted bear tracks right behind where I'm sitting out on the wet ground one day,
wow.
And it was a mama and at least one cub, and people see them all the time around here, just north of here, and even down here, kind of where we live across the bayou. It's becoming more and more frequent.
Our big comeback is elk.
Well, the game wardens around here they try to act like there's no bears or even big cats around here, even though people were getting them on their game cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
And until one made it to the front page of the local paper just up the road from me, about 5 minutes, a full-grown black bear. And of course now they're just traveling through. They're just passing through, probably on vacation from Georgia going to Louisiana.
I was gonna say, where are they going?
All wildlife and fisheries at least admit black bears exist, but the panther, they continue to deny them. But people see them all the time. I mean,
and I've seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
Well, now there's a logic to that. Whenever I was a boy, you saw on the Saturday commercials around the cartoons, save the Florida panther. We have to save the Florida panther. And they turned loose 400 mountain lions in the Everglades with tracking collars, and every damn one of them left Florida as fast as they could go because there's no deer herd down there for them, and ended up in Alabama and Georgia. They got to have a herd for them to feed off of, and that big cat ain't going to do it. They'll tell you that the eastern mountain lion is now extinct, of course. That way you don't have to protect it. Anything coming in is a western mountain lion that somebody had as a pet and it got loose.
Yeah.
The game wardens will tell you we do not have mountain lion in the state of Alabama. They'll also admit that 18 pets got run over by traffic 2 years ago.
In lower Michigan, we don't really have. I mean, we got tons of deer, rabbits, stuff like that, but we really don't have any real predators other than coyotes, and occasionally you'll see a bobcat, but that's really the only predators we got in lower Michigan.
Well, here in the South, we talk about a black panther, okay, and that's different from a mountain lion. people, the biologists will tell you in a heartbeat, there's no such thing as a black panther. Mountain lion cannot be black. Okay, you're forgetting history. History was this: when the conquistadors came into Mexico and conquered it, there was a group of Indians living on the northern tribe of that called the Muskogee. They were kind of, we'll call them, put upon race.
They lived in Oklahoma.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Yeah, they were servants to the Aztecs and all. They were nobodies. They took the opportunity to skedaddle out of there and went up into Arkansas and started working east along the Salt Trail. They got into what we now call Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi in about the mid to late 1600s and formed the Muskogee Nation, which we call them Creek Indians. Okay. The symbol for virility and strength of a shaman or a chief was a jaguar, a black jaguar. Now, they'll tell you there's no such thing in America yet. We have photographic evidence from 1879 in Mississippi of a little girl sitting up on top of a 250-pound jaguar that was killed in the cane breaks there, claiming it was a black panther. It's a spotted jaguar. Okay. Yep. Having said that, in Arizona, right now, according to the Book of Tracks, they have found so much jaguar sightings, jaguar proof. They're just waiting to find kittens to claim their breeding in Arizona mountains right now. They've come into Texas. They're migrating in because we've got a population of deer here. When I was a boy, they weren't any armadillos I'd ever seen in Alabama. They came in the early 80s. That's when the coyotes came in too, following the armadillo. So the game wardens will tell you there's no such thing as a black panther, and yet every year game cameras show that's a black panther. Oh no, that's a house cat. That's a 3-foot tall house cat. Dang, I didn't know you had a Maine Coon down here. Wow.
Well, and with that too, every once in a while you get an animal. It's called, I think it's melanistic is what they call it, and they're just naturally black. And
the game warden's just not wanting to admit, because if there is, I had in my job probably about 5 years ago now, there's a large cattle operation about 15 miles from me. Probably 20,000 head they run on all their pastures. And one of the guys down there brought me a picture from a calf. They've been having calves killed. And they're all bed at the back of the neck. That's a cat. Cats go for the back of the neck. Canine goes for throat. Cats go for the neck. Paralyzed. But the picture they said didn't make sense was this. And he's 15 foot up an oak tree, draped over a limb, is a 6-point buck. It drug it up there to eat it.
Yep.
That's a jaguar.
I'll tell you one thing. If I'm a jaguar or a black bear, I ain't wandering around Northwest Alabama, because I know there's a fella there that's got a couple 44 Magnum pistols that he keeps about all the time. He's got 4 of them.
Ready for him.
Around in the woods on that big red with them big pistols. I ain't going anywhere near that country.
Yeah, and it ain't been that long back. A few years ago, we had a picture in the paper of a cow that had got loose, was in the woods over here in the Bankhead National Forest, and this was over between Haleville and back up, and that's Winston County up toward Lawrence County. Mm-hmm. And the picture of the cow had claw marks on its back, and I'm talking about the claw marks was that daggum far apart. I mean, they looked like they were spread out like this. And the game wardens tried everything they could to tell us those wasn't claw marks.
Oh yeah,
we could all see them. It's as plain as day.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cat that did that once.
Mm-hmm.
It's great when you get raw strips.
I was told about 8 years ago that just east of where I am, near the town of Oak Grove, that I think a Colt was killed and his mother was attacked by a panther, and the Wildlife and Fisheries cried like crazy. Oh no, that was just he just got caught in a barbed wire fence or something like that. No, that was a panther. Right.
I saw a horse that down the left side of it, it had been cut down to its ribs. I mean, this animal had to have major attention, and it was a pet is what it was. It wasn't something that you just happened to have out there in the pasture. This was the daughter's riding horse, you know. So you're going to fix, you know, Big Jake. And it looked like you had taken a box cutter and walked up to one side and made like 18-inch long, 2-inch apart slashes.
Here's my theory on cats.
And drug.
Here's my theory on cats. We got a little house cat, you know, about so long. I mean, she's decent sized little house cat. When that cat gets in the mood and whips the hell out of my pit bull and my shepherd husky mix, and they're scared to death to go in the living room with her, I ain't messing around with no cat that weighs 200 pounds. Ain't happening. If an 8-pound cat can whoop 2 dogs like that, I ain't messing around with no cat.
Yeah.
I just glanced over here at the comments, and Stephen M was talking about Plowboy. He said he may have 4 now. Tomorrow may be another story.
Yeah.
I believe all 4 of those are in the Guns You're Not Going to Trade series, though, aren't they, Plowboy?
I lost you for there for a second.
Okay.
Guns he hadn't traded yet.
Yeah. Stephen M said he may have 4 now, but maybe another story tomorrow.
Now, these right here I'm down to are stuff that fill a niche for me, or they're useful until the 5th and the 6th come along.
Here's the question that I'm going to ask. It's probably going to hurt my feelings, but Model 29 that you have, or the Anaconda?
Well, I don't have the 29 anymore. If you're talking about the 4-inch 29,
you got the modern 29, the 29. What is that?
I've got the.
I put a video on that.
I've got a 5-inch 629 in its place now.
629.
Between it and the Anaconda, that's a hard one. And the thing is I ain't even shot the Anaconda yet, but now that 5-inch 629 shoots good. But I have every reason to believe that Anaconda will too. I'll eventually break down and shoot that here before long.
Tell me this Anaconda ain't in a case set.
It's not.
Okay.
This is a brand new Anaconda.
I was going to start a series of guns I won't get rid of, but I realized it'd be a short series because it's all of them.
Hey, kind of like Caleb.
I was at a White Powder Club, and we were doing a cleanup weekend, and we got done. Everybody's, you know, after lunch, plinking, and I was sitting down, had my back up against one of the poles that make up the shed on the 100-yard line, taking my walker and bracing between my knees and trying to hit bowling pins at 100 yards. And had got a couple of them. I was doing pretty good. And there's 30, 40 people here. And I had just finished a string, and I'd freed up the cylinder, and somebody bumped me, and I looked, and he handed me a Colt single action Army 7.5-inch barrel Cavalry model. Said, try this. Hey, cool. You know, so I get down, I dial in, and about my 3rd shot, I connected. And I said, it shoots a little high and left. And I got up, and I'm looking at it. So it shoots a little high left for me. How does it do for you? And I turn around, and here's the freaking case set opened up with the bullets in the thing from 1964. He had never fired it. He was like,
oh, wow.
What did you? Well, I've had it. I've never shot it. Oh, hell, get a box of ammo. We're breaking this puppy in now.
I ain't never had a gun I won't shoot.
We're loading for this. Let's go.
I could never buy a gun in state.
My ex-father-in-law, when me and my first wife was still married, gave me a still in the box Winchester Lone Star commemorative, all paperwork and everything for Christmas. And I walked over to the gun safe, reached up on top, grabbed a box 30-30, started putting them in. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Gonna shoot it." He said, "You're not supposed to shoot that. You're supposed to look at it." I said, "If I can't shoot it, you might as well take it back."
Yeah.
Stepped out the back door, blasted.
I had somebody look at me crazy when I was trying to shoot that. Well, I did shoot it, but I had that flintlock from the War of 1812 pistol. And that thing probably hadn't been shot since at least probably when it was, battlefield pickup. And hell, I shoot it. I shoot all my guns.
We shoot that original Revolutionary War committee of safety gun. That's a
And
fun one.
I'm sure it's glad to be shot because it's a gun.
Yeah.
And it likes to be shot.
And not only
That's the
that,
point
when
of
you
having
shoot
a
it,
firearm.
Exactly.
when you shoot it, it forces you to take care of it. So
Yeah, that too.
You know, that's a really good point. Yeah, I'm so glad you guys shoot those authentic, original pieces. I just love it when you do that.
They have
There's a part of me in
personalities.
the back of my mind, I'm
Cool.
going, "Oh God, please don't let it blow up in their hands." Or something.
Oh.
But
If it does, you probably won't see the video.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got a black blast on a video on one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't the gun. That was the casing. But we did get some comments on that when we re-released Snapper shooting the Griswold gun.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Some people were saying it needs to be put in a museum. Some of
No.
the guns I've seen in museums should be brought out and shot because some museums they'll weld the barrel shut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what's sad is some of the guns I've owned have been in museums. Museums, if you donate a gun to a museum, there's a high likelihood if they have any other copy of it, that they're going to sell your gun to make profit for the museum.
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, you go to a museum and there's never just one gun. Well, I don't know, maybe some in some museums, but you go to the museums and it's like, oh wow, here's a whole wall of Colt single action 45. You know, we only need to see like one or two. We don't need to see 40 of them. You know, it's just.
And the museum usually has many, many more guns in the back that will never be seen if they hold on to them until either the museum closes or they sell it off to make a profit. If they don't have space for it, they're not going to put them out, and they're just going to sit in a closet somewhere and never get touched.
Right.
And it's even
to me,
worse.
that's bad.
It's even worse with black powder revolvers because some of the museums I've talked to, they say their rules are they have to remove the firing pin. Well, like muzzle or cap and ball revolver has no firing pin. What's your option now? Well, the barrel shut. And it's like that's
really.
And dude,
Oh
wow.
I've been up to where Duke works, and they actually take pretty good care of their guns. They don't have to do that, so I don't know how they got around it.
God.
And some of that comes down to the type of museum. So if it's a not-for-profit museum, they're not doing any selling or buying. If anything, they'll do trading.
You know, you just pointed out a niche in the industry right there. Make up solid nipples.
Yep.
Yeah, why
To
not?
sell to museums.
Yeah.
A solid nipple, no channel through it. All you gotta do is take your original, put the nipples in it, save them for the thing. There you go. You can put it on display.
Yeah, that's super easy.
The barrel.
Yeah, no one would notice that. So Gary, you're saying
Well,
they
what
literally
they
just
need to
filled
do-
the barrel?
What they need to do is put a weld the barrel shut. Just give them to me.
Yeah, they won't fill. A lot of times they'll just TIG weld in like a crossbar in there.
Yeah.
But it's still good. It's still
I'm telling
good.
you, like all of me
I don't have
inside
no
would risk prison time versus seeing a beautiful gun get welded shut.
Oh.
I'm waiting for the comments whenever we start actually shoot the Queen Anne's that was made in 1720.
We have one. We need to shoot it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, that's gonna be cool.
It needs a little work still. It's got the spring is a little weak after like what, almost 300 years.
Almost 300 years.
300 years.
And that was my question to him at the time was why couldn't you just like slug it with the barrel with lead? Well, that's actually a projectile. So they're like then it's loaded. I don't know. Duke's been around a lot of them museum guns, and you guys
and like I said,
maybe
the ones that do that, that's probably more of your private museums. But like the ones that we have out there at Fort Laramie, the only thing wrong with them is that at some point in their history out there, curator decided to dip them and wax, and they're waxed to the point that it's going to take a ton of money to ever get them to where they could function again.
I believe Snapper volunteered.
I did.
Yeah, it's funny as I went in there and they had this nickel-plated Smith & Wesson first model American with ivory grips. And the thing is so waxed that it's locked in the open position with the extractor up, and you can't move it.
You know how I would do it if it was me? I would take the ivory grips off, and then the same thing I do with all my original guns when I first get them. I'll stick them in boiling pot of distilled water. And then I'll let all that wax just come out and then take it back apart, put it back in, pull it back out, and then oil it down really well, and go over it with 4-aught still wool.
Right.
Because when you boil a gun in distilled water, it takes the like red oxide and turns into a black oxide, which is what bluing is. That's how they used to blue guns back in the day. So it's really good to do to them, and you're not. Water boils at far below the temperature to mess with any the tempering on metal or even springs. It's too low of a temperature, so it doesn't hurt springs, it doesn't hurt the metal, it doesn't hurt anything. And it's really good to do because if there is any rust hidden in a gun anywhere you can't see nor touch nor get to, it'll neutralize it.
Yeah.
Right.
Gunsmith 4570 said that sounds like anti-gun museums to me. I'm telling you right now, unless it's a historical fort or something, every government museum is pretty anti-gun because it's a government museum. So I'm not going to get into the politics on that, but Task Force Tyler, he wants to open up a new subject here. But before we get into that, Ethan has the one to answer here. He said, where do you acquire most of your guns, Ethan?
Here, there, and everywhere. Gun broker. Actually, gun auction probably the most, but yeah, gun broker and gun auctions.
And there are deals to still be found on Gunbroker.
When you guys go to auctions, do you drive to local auctions or are they online auctions?
We do online auctions like on Gunbroker, but most of our auctions we just go to around here. I went to one in Pratt where there was nobody there, and this was back before anybody really knew about these gun auctions. Nobody there, and I walk in and first thing I see is a Mosin Nagant sniper rifle, and it's the actual PU sniper, and they're selling it for $175.
Oh, that's great.
That was the same auction. I got that FN 49 for $150 and 30-06 Webley. We got a lot of really cool guns from that auction for like
that's pretty neat.
Walk around $400.
They had an auction they went to, and Garrett called me saying, "Hey, they got a Colt 49 pocket here, and the one that you see in my videos, I paid $500 for it. I mean, that's an original Colt, and it was in shitting condition." And even Gunbroker, you come across, it would have been $450, but Caleb back there.
Caleb bid against him on accident.
Like my Christmas present I got for my wife at 1860 Army, that was like $450-ish when it was all said and done, and that's an original 1860 Army.
Yeah, I looked at that one and I said, "Hey, Snapper, this don't look like anything I want."
That's exactly what it was. Caleb found it and said, "Send a picture of this to Snapper, this blown up 1860 Army." Next thing you know, Snapper has a blown up 1860 Army.
Yep.
I like when Caleb bid on the old 6-gun.
Oh God, yes, that's probably the best deal I've ever seen anybody get on a gun in history.
Caleb gave $500 for old, $350 for old 6-gun, and when it got here, it was an original Rogers and Spencer.
Really?
Yeah.
We lost Blackie. He'll probably be back in just a second. Task Force Tyler, and this is going to be good for Santee. And he said, "How do you guys feel about 1960 Western movies? How accurate or inaccurate were they?" I think he's just referring to the time, Santee.
I commented back. I said most of them have the wrong gun leather, the wrong clothing. I think it's safe to assume that most of those 60s, 70s movies were at that point pretty far off from any kind of historic truth at all. But I imagine there were maybe a couple of them here and there that were probably close to it.
What I like to look at is like the 1930s movies,
right?
Because those are original guns. They didn't
and those were original cowboys.
And so were some of the guys holding a volcanic rifle and volcanic pistols and percussion revolvers. They're all original.
Volcanic pistol. Talk about a 1960s, early 60s Western that's really close, not perfect. How the West Was Won. Duke and I were talking about that the other day. The firearms and the clothing and how the West was won.
Yeah.
Is really pretty decent. I mean, at
Yeah.
one point they using trap doors for Springfields, but you know, for muzzle loaders. But
You see a couple of 1851 navies in that movie, the Confederate deserter, and I think Gregory Peck is using an 1851 Navy in the Indian attack on the wagon train. And
he's actually
hard using a Remington conversion where he takes the cylinder out and dumps the cartridge as a peace gesture.
I looked that up because I was interested, because Gregory Peck pulls that pistol out and says, "This pistol's made in London." So I slowed it down and I was like, "So is he saying this is like a London Colt in 1848 or whatever it was?"
Made and loaded for bear.
No, actually, a Smith & Wesson Model 2 Army. So that makes it, even in my eyes, even though it's too early for that gun, I'm like, hey, they snuck one in there. That's pretty impressive to me.
But then when
I just watched that movie the other day.
The Navy, if I remember right.
What's that?
I think the next scene when he actually uses it on a Cheyenne.
It's a 51 Navy. When he pulls it out at the card table, it's a Smith & Wesson No. 2 Army. So it's very interesting. But Duke had something to say about it.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I finally watched that movie in HD the other day, and I know it's Jimmy Stewart's actually wearing brain tan buckskin, and so it's like, that movie was actually, on clothing and everything, was pretty darn close.
Isn't it amazing how
HD with the Biscadero rigs, but, for the most part, it was good.
HD makes it so much easier to copy some of these movie holsters and guns, and it's amazing because I love to, like, Josie Wells. I love watching Josie Wells when I'm driving. And just watching that and, pausing, what gun is that? That would actually be pretty close too if it wasn't for all the conversions they had in 1865.
Yeah. Gregory Peck pulls this one out at the card table and says this is a London-made pistol. First, I was like, what in the world, London-made pistol? And then I was like, oh, okay, gotcha. So I checked it out on Firearms IAD, whatever you call that, the Firearms database.
Movie Firearms database.
Yeah, and it was a
the only thing about Josie Wales, that's my favorite Clint Eastwood Western or movie period with him.
Yeah, me too.
Carrying two walkers, I mean, wow, that's
who does that?
Fire hydrants, they're so
and wearing a tie.
Talking about historically accurate clothing, the best I've seen as far as historical accuracy goes comes from the Everything Black Powder channel when he's shooting the 51 Navy and the hunter's frock and the tricorn. I don't know if he was wearing the original Nike shoes, but
the thread count.
They're original Ray-Bans, I can tell you that.
That was pretty good. Because Ethan gets picked on for this frock because it's a closed front frock. And somehow officially those are no longer historically accurate, even though they were last year. So I don't know.
Nothing changes more than history.
Yeah, it changes all the time, don't it?
Yeah.
I'll just take a knife and cut it open in the front and be like, "Hey, y'all happy now?"
Yeah, don't do that.
Okay, Leonard asked, "How about spaghetti western?" Then, seen those guns. Sabata, how do you pronounce it? Sabata has a harmonica lever action. Henry, go ahead. I heard Plowboy say something.
No, I didn't say nothing. I was thinking it though.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
What's fascinating is that they did get so many of those guns for those spaghetti westerns. They got some really neat guns for those things.
Spaghetti westerns were advertisements for you, Birdie.
Yeah.
Caleb, when he was
Army
younger,
San Marco, I guess.
I was actually watching Good, the Bad, and the Ugly earlier today over lunch.
Caleb here, he had no idea what the man with no name gun really was because you didn't pay attention. When you're younger, one day he walks into the gun store and he says, they have the most incorrect 51 Navy conversion I've ever seen. It's got sights. He said, they're not even trying to make these right anymore.
What's this crap?
Those are technically 72 open tops with a 51 Navy barrel, right?
Yeah. Well, it appears to be. And then, that's a pretty good 51 Navy looking barrel. I don't know exactly what the differences are, but you get
the barrel they use on their conversion navies. They have the 51 Navy conversion Navy. You know, probably the same barrel they use in those.
And the wedge.
You know,
They just cut that ejector.
The actual hinge for the loading lever, you know.
Or the loading lever. Because isn't it cut in half so you can like take it apart and use it as an ejector?
I mean, right here.
Yeah.
That's your ejector.
That's kind of cool.
Doesn't it have
But
like a
the-
49 pocket model wedge?
Do what?
It has like a 49 pocket model wedge in it, don't it?
How's the difference on that?
Like,
Tell you the truth, I don't know the difference because I've never had a 49
Navy,
pocket model.
The 51 Navy conversions have that wedge that doesn't have the spring in it either.
Yeah.
So that's actually correct. My 51 Navy, I think I have it here. It doesn't have that wedge with
That one doesn't have.
Yeah, this one don't have the spring in it.
Give me just a second. I'll go grab my actual 51 Navy. That's. Oh, yeah.
I got this Richards Mason here, and it doesn't have the spring on the wedge.
Yeah.
What they got here is they got a screw that's got a flat side, and you turn it till it's flat, and then it comes right on out.
That's what. That's the way this one is.
Duke, has that ever backed out when you're shooting it?
No, I've never had a problem with that one. The only one I had a problem with backing out was the Patterson. Yeah, I talked about how I fixed that. But this is an older Army San Marco conversion, and it does have the spring on it still.
Okay.
If your Patterson's like mine, they don't have the spring on them either.
So that's the actual Colt. Hold on, there we go. And it doesn't have a spring.
Yeah.
So it looks like, guys, Blackie may be out for the evening. He said his internet just went down. I was going to talk about he's making and selling this gun butter. I was going to talk about it, but I'll wait till he's back on before we discuss that. But anyway, Slick, if you're out there, Slick Six Gun, try coming in now. Looks like we got room for one more. If he doesn't come back. But anyway, there was a couple more comments here I was going to read. Lita Green said, just looking at you guys on screen with all your old black powder guns, you should make a great bunch of bank robbers in a Western. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Here's our new guy. He hadn't even been on the channel yet, but here he is, Slick Six Guns. Most of you already all know him.
Hey, Slick.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Slick.
I'm glad you got a shot in here.
Hey, how we doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I literally begged, borrowed, and stole to try to get on here as
well, it's good because
Garrett, it only took you 50 minutes to let him on. I mean, geez.
Well, yeah. It's good because Snapper actually asked me the other day when we already had a full slate plus a few, and he said, could we get Slick Six Guns on here because he has some questions to ask you about a certain Frontier model Colt revolver, as I recall. Snapper.
Indeed.
I think he's asked me plenty of questions in my comment section on my videos, so I don't know if I've already answered.
He probably answered most of them, but you got it with you?
It's not physically on me, no. It's
okay.
Yeah, you just
He's
have
in.
to.
He's in. He ain't leaving now.
Yeah, I'm not leaving now. I don't want to get off. So, but you know, if you ask me, I'll do the best I can to answer. If I can, I'll tell you I can't. You know.
So, how did you like shooting it? Is that the first original Colt you've ever shot? First gen Colt you've ever shot?
Yes, it was.
How did you like it?
It was amazing, to say the least. I took a still shot of it when the black powder went off, and it just literally looks like a huge fireball is out front, and it's just and I was actually surprised by how much recoil I had experienced. It kind of took me through a loop.
No, I mean where you
were yeah, I was gonna say you got a Henry. What Henry do you have? The Uberti or you got the American Henry?
Oh, I got both.
Oh, there you go. So, which one do you prefer?
Well, as far as aesthetics, I would say the Henry repeating arms, and as far as historicity, probably the Uberti.
Uberti that much better?
Yeah, they do a good job, despite what people say. I'll be honest. I was impressed with their Henry model. Yeah,
what you
got it.
This is the Uberti one, and actually the kid I traded it with for it, he told me when he got this one, he actually traded one of the American-made Henrys because he said that aesthetically, this is closer to the original. The Uberti's closer to the original than the American-made ones, because the American-made ones, they kind of round off these octagons. And there's a couple other things that I forgot what he said, but these Ubertis are pretty good. This one's one that's made in '97, and it's in pristine condition. Other than it's got a little bit of wear right here on the stock, but other than that, it's pristine.
That's kind of shocking that the American company can't make their own rifle correct. I mean, I know that
you gotta remember the American company just bought the name, so they're actually, I think it's the old Ithaca company. It's what the modern Henry J is now.
If I somehow got the Colt name, I would try to do the best to make everything the exact way it should be. I mean,
right. Well, but the wood quality is a lot better on the American-made ones.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well,
But
my
that
goal
is,
is to,
you know, finish can only go so far when it comes to authenticity.
But I tell you what, this is a great deer hunting rifle, because after you shoot the deer, all you got to do is take one of these side plates out, and then you can skin and gut the whole thing right there. I mean, it's great.
Dustin said that's the first airsoft I've seen from Henry. I didn't know they made those.
Well, there's an airsoft Springfield.
Oh yeah, we've had Springfields before, but we finally dove into the original 50-70 market. We got 2 of them now, and working on a third, trying to build a Allen conversion collection so we can do a series of videos on them. But we were pretty proud of this one. This is the 1870 model and in the 50-70. So Duke seems to really like that cartridge. This one's full length, yeah. Well, I take that back. This is a cadet rifle. There's only a couple thousand of these made for West Point and a couple other places, so it's like 2 inches shorter than the full length gun, and it has no sling swivels on them. But we were pretty happy to get it for a good deal. But yeah, be watching for some Allen conversion stuff to come up on the channel. Let's see here. I have a question somebody asked me to ask Santee, and it may take us down a rabbit hole, but we got time. We're going to run for a little while longer. So, Santee, this is a question. I can't remember who told me to ask it to you. Do you think Billy the Kid died that night?
Yeah. Well, let me think about it a little bit. Yeah.
What, you mean Young Guns 2 is wrong?
No, not at all. So if you want me to expound on that, I will. It's first of all, there's 2 really good sides to this. If you guys have watched videos or read books and stuff, I mean, there's a lot of Brushy Bill Roberts. There's a lot going on with that guy, which is good and bad. But the truth is that I think that Billy, people think that he was just this innocent kid, but he was a rustler. He was not a good kid, and it's hard for me to imagine that somebody would just stop what they were doing and just disappear into obscurity like that. I really have a hard time with that because historically that's not what happened. So, I mean,
yeah. Well, I don't know. If he was Brushy Bill, didn't he go to fight with Pancho Villa, and then he went up San Juan Hill with
Right.
I mean,
he tried to kill Hitler. Yeah, all that.
Yeah, he was like the
Darth
greatest.
Vader, sure.
Yeah, he was in on the moon landing too. I think
he was too.
Right.
I may be biased, but if I had to be around one or the other between Jesse James and Billy the Kid, I'm going with Jesse James just because his story is a little bit more. I'm not saying he's a better character, but he has a little bit more like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Jesse James is probably a better option.
He was
we know he's in the grave.
From the circumstances around him.
Well,
I think that's the best way to put Jesse James.
They exhumed him in 1995. They know it's him in his grave.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
never going to
100%.
find that out about Billy because his grave was washed away in a flood. So we're never going to know.
And like I said, Butch and Sundance disappeared, and that if he had disappeared, he'd have wound up the same way as they did because they didn't disappear for long.
Yeah,
yeah,
They showed up.
exactly.
Swim as fast as you can said, hello, Santee. Santee, don't forget the Ned Kelly video I was asking for. I don't know if that means anything to you, but he said to ask you again.
Yeah. Ned Kelly is a pretty fascinating subject for an Australian outlaw. It's wow. That's pretty cool. Have you guys ever seen any of the movies?
Oh, yeah. We've had an entire chat here on the channel dedicated to Ned Kelly from a guy from Australia. And it was completely opposite of what I thought it would be, because he's like, down there, it's like it's still political today as it was then, and you got people that'll just fight you that Ned Kelly's good, and people that'll fight you that Ned Kelly, and it's really still a politicized character down there, I guess.
Wow.
So,
well, you know, you can say he was good, you can say he was bad, but the one thing that's absolutely sure is he's dead.
He's dead. Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? One of the things that really put him on the map was that suit of armor. You know, I mean, how crazy is that?
I bet that hurt too. By the way, I bet that hurt a lot.
What they say when they found him, he was sore and completely deaf.
Well, yeah, he got shot in the legs, but
he kept pounding that helmet with not Martini Henry's, I mean, Snyder's.
The thing about Ned Kelly is he fits so closely into American folklore. Like, it could have happened here, you know, but it doesn't. So, you know.
Yeah, if somebody made that story to be right after the Civil War, it would have made sense here, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty crazy. Well, guys, I hope I don't mean to be rude, but I'm going to jump off because I got to somehow fit a T-Rex in a stagecoach tomorrow. So I'm sure you'll understand that.
We appreciate it.
I was going to ask you.
Good seeing you, Nancy.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on with all you guys.
Same here.
Yeah, good seeing you,
Good seeing you again.
Santee.
You have a good night, Anthony.
How's it going, dude? What were you going to ask him? Maybe he'll answer it in the comments.
I was going to ask him if there's any chance he can get me on the riding the T-Rex firing the Henry in a video.
I'd pay to see that.
Yep. No kidding. So anyway, if you guys got any more, we're going to go over here to the comments a little more, guys, but we are going to visit amongst ourselves here too, because some of these guys haven't hardly said nothing at all. So anyway,
everything black powder.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're one of my favorite ballistics channels, and we talk about this when you've been on before, but you prefer the Remington. I know that. But what would you say is your favorite cap and ball revolver, including the Remingtons, of all the variety of them? Everything black powder.
I prefer a Remington.
I don't think he prefers
I prefer a Remington.
I messed up. I was trying to say black powder shooter 44.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I was about to say.
You don't prefer Remington.
You better be careful there.
It's like them fighting words where we come from.
Black powder shooter 44.
Let's see, it's 8 against 1 right here. 8 Colt people versus 1 Remington, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm a cool man.
I'll grab mine. Hold on 1 second.
Uh-oh. There you
There's
go.
another Colt.
Nice.
I'm gonna get you all triggered. There we go. Here's the best one.
We're the only people that
Very nice.
I do not have a Remington in the room.
Nor do I.
That's going to change soon.
Yeah.
Only in this room.
We actually have a pile of Remingtons coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, I got something to talk or ask Plowboy about. Right quick.
I want to finish what Black Powder Shooter 44 was going to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
You brought your gun. Is that your favorite?
The Remington is for sure, but the 61 Navy is not too bad either. The Colts, they're okay. They're okay, Garrett.
Well, it was so nice having you on the show. But
Where you gotta go.
So why do you like the Remington over the Colts?
Just for ease of use, just for like when I'm at the range and shooting. Now, in a historical context, you know, when you look at the 51 Navy, that's probably the most classic cap and ball revolver, right?
Oh yeah, so, I would say so. Yeah.
And even in my collection, the Colts outnumber my Remingtons, but I do prefer to shoot my Remington if I'm just trying to go out and have fun on the range. I guess.
Probably the Remington tend to gum up more. I heard that from people.
Remington's got.
In my
I
experience,
haven't had that
Remington.
experience. Well, so this one I haven't. I have a long-barreled one that does come up though. It does come up pretty quickly, but the other one, like I can run anything through it and it doesn't come up. So I feel like it's just dependent on the gun you're using or the load, that kind of stuff.
We've had 4 of them and didn't get lucky on any of them.
Well,
The only
Yeah.
time I've had my Remington not gum up is if I put a lot of boar butter on top of the rounds as I'm firing, because it blows that lube down into the cylinder pin. Otherwise, if I'm shooting wads within 20 rounds, I got to clean it because it just won't cycle.
That's probably why we're not.
Oh,
so
okay.
good
Was that
with
Uberti or
blades.
Pieta?
Both.
Caleb, I put
Both.
WD-40
Wow.
on
Yeah.
that. WD-40 on my ball.
the only thing I got against them is most of the time we're shooting, we don't use
Anything.
wads, grease, and nothing. We use the historical load how Colt said to do it. And I know some people get chain fires. We never had that. I had one with the Remington ones, but never really have chain fire issues. And you really just can't run a Remington as long that way as you can a Colt. Which I guess if we lubed everything up, we could run both of them. But that's just my only bias against it.
Speaking of Remington, I would like to thank American, by the way, because he made it possible that I'm rebuilding an original Remington. He had one he had forever that was just a frame and sent it to me. And I'm rebuilding it, and I plan on gifting it to Garrett for just being an all-around good friend.
And I really appreciate that. Like I said, I got a pile of Remingtons coming in. We're going to have to shoot.
I'm just glad somebody was going to do something with it because I've had it for 25 years sitting in a drawer, and it just Remingtons just aren't my thing. So, you know,
Well,
I like the
I
Colt.
love it. I love it. I got it up and shooting. I'm making it look pretty and making it look more authentic to its age because somebody had nickel plated that thing a long time ago, and then somebody attacked it with a dull beaver, and it needs a lot of work.
You mean somebody went and tried to work on it with a tomahawk?
I would say if he had a tomahawk, it was a nicer tomahawk than the guy used when he worked on this gun. Somebody beat this poor thing to death.
Well, probably what happened is some cowboy had it and needed to set some fence staples, and he just used it for a hammer.
He must
See
use
that
the
a lot,
entire gun
really.
for a hammer.
Yeah, he must have used the entire gun for a hammer. You know what it actually looks like if somebody grabbed like a wood rasp, you know, the really hard, like sharp ones, and then tried to file a gun with a wood rasp. That's what it looks like.
Like a farrier rat.
Honestly, I didn't think it was salvageable. Honestly, I didn't think it was salvageable. That's why I gave it to you because I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to do anything with it.
Yeah, my idiot just got it shooting in like 4 days, but it didn't look pretty.
but since I done
What was the
drug
main issue
everything,
with it?
since
What's
I done
that?
drug everything Black Powder's name through the mud and said he liked Remingtons, why don't you go ahead and tell us what your favorite cap and ball revolver actually
What his
is?
favorite Remington is?
Probably my favorite cap and ball pistol is an 1860 Army.
Yeah, that's a good one. Solid
That's
choice.
probably
really
my
good
favorite.
You just like it because you like to, don't you?
Well, you know, my biggest beef with the Remington is the way the grip comes up with the trigger guard. Is it pinches my finger?
Yep.
And I don't dig it.
Mhm.
Right there.
Yep.
How about you, Slicks?
You know what my biggest
I'd have to
My
say
biggest
as far as-
complaint with the Remington is it uses a 2-piece grip, and I just like how clean a 1-piece Colt grip looks. That's the only thing I got against the Remington is I hate the 2-piece grips.
Mm-hmm. What were you saying, Slick?
No, I'd have to say that I'm kind of torn between the 51 and the 60, just because I haven't shot the 60 as much as the 51. So at this point, I'd have to say it's the 51.
The 51's just classic.
Yeah,
It
it
goes
is.
a lot of places in history.
I like my 60.
Plowboy, what do you like better?
Like the Model 3 American.
51 Navy, hands down. It's
Oh, yeah.
for me. It's all in the handling. It's a quick gun. I love the grip. I mean, unless we're after those grizzlies we've been talking about.
It sounds really well.
Yeah.
Well, and I like to think about it like this: the 60 Army, a lot of people don't realize, went to the Army, and it was in the Civil War. And by the time they surplus those things, they didn't surplus them right away. They kept them.
Yeah.
And by the time they surplused them, they were pretty obsolete and ready to be converted. So a true cap and ball 1860 Army outside of the Civil War doesn't have – this is actually an original right here, but it doesn't have near the history that the 51 Navy has as far as going all over the country.
Mm-hmm. I like the 1860 Army because it's a lot of power for a little gun.
Yep.
But the 51 Navy, if I had to get rid of every single gun I ever owned, and I had to keep sizes, my favorite is still the Dragoon, just because it's ridiculous. It's an absolute cartoon, ridiculous gun. But if you had to go to actual practicality, it would be the 51 Navy. I'd probably still choose 51 Navy over the 1860.
And the
Doug,
51 Navy.
I got to ask you because you just released 2 videos on the 51 Navy today.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite cap and ball?
Mine? Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I'm convinced it's, especially after today, that it's much more powerful than people give it credit for. There's a tendency.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this is just, it's no different than a 380 pistol. No, I don't think so. 38 special would be more likely, and even that's a little bit misleading because especially if you go by this 375 bore. I mean, it expands into a much larger bullet and will behave differently than a 38 special. But I mean, I was getting like 975 feet per second with a 150 grain bullet and 38 long point with 20 grains of black powder out of this thing today. I mean,
yeah, that's impressive.
Out of a 7-inch barrel, that's like the equal of a 4-inch service revolver and 38 special and plus P territory. I mean, that's pretty impressive. If I did everything right, I mean, you can go to my videos and just say, well, you did this wrong, you should have done this. But as far as I can tell, this is much more powerful than people think it is.
Yeah,
I think they do that. I think they do that. Go ahead, Garrett.
Oh, I was just going to say, well, the guy we should be asking here is Black Powder Shooter 44. He chronographs and tests that stuff all the time.
That's
what
true.
do you think? You think the 51 Navy is more powerful than people give it credit for?
Yeah, and well, the other thing you have to think about is since it is a lighter projectile than, let's say, a 44, it's going to be going faster, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another benefit of it. But like you said, getting, 9 to 75 feet per second. I mean, that's, if you have the right load, it's compressed on the powder, right? Like, that's totally makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
That's going to do damage.
You did a video on that about 2 months ago. Is that right? Didn't you do a video doing exactly that about 2 months ago? Shooting your conversion?
I believe so.
You were shooting conversion? Yeah. I remember that. You were getting like 850 feet per second out of I'm trying to remember what you were shooting exactly. I think you were shooting 38 short Colt, weren't you?
Yeah. No. This is going back a little bit further. I think I was comparing Black Powder and then Pyrodex, so I was eking out a little bit more power with the Pyrodex loads just because it's a little bit more potent. But
I did the short and long Colt video. I think you're talking about, Doug.
Is that you, or I'm trying to remember who it was?
I think it's me you're thinking of.
Everything Black Powder? Is that one of yours?
Everything Black Powder is a 38 long Colt
okay,
video.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, when I watched your videos today, I was surprised and I was a little jealous because you're getting, I think, a good 100 feet per second over the ones I was using.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was like, am I doing something wrong here? That seems awful high. And
doesn't seem wrong to me.
What powder were you using? I didn't get
Swiss, 3F Swiss. Just right around 20 grains, maybe just a tad over.
So
and those are those hollow point or those hollow base rounds you were talking about?
150 grain bullets.
And did you?
Are you casting them or are you buying them? Where are you getting those?
I'm reloading them myself.
I mean the lead. Where are you getting the lead? Are you casting them or are you buying them?
I think it's a company called Matt's Bullets up in Arkansas, and they come already lubed for smokeless powder, and I just take the lube out and replace it with my own 60% Crisco, 40% beeswax, put 20 grains into the volume into the 38 long Colt cartridge with a Magnum primer, Magnum small pistol primer, seed it, crimp it. That's it. With 20 grains of Swiss 3F black powder.
And it's max bullets, you say?
I think MATTS bullets. Let me
Max.
look that up real quick.
While he's looking that up,
I'm going off memory. I've had these for like.
Next time you guys are doing some black powder loads through the chronograph, I'd like to see what 777 with 40 grains of 45 Colts actually shooting through a chronograph, and I'd like to see what that 36, because you were talking 900 feet with that 36 Navy. I'd like to see what that would do with 777 if you could get it up around 1,000 or even over with that 777.
No, that's on my agenda actually. That's the next video I'm going to do actually.
Light it Green had a question here. He said,
I love that 777 powder.
Which one of you guys makes your own black powder? Getting to be a lot more of us.
I have.
Got us started.
Yeah, you got to talk to everything about black
No.
powder.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute. No. It's not match bullets. I got these from Old West Bullet Molds. I think it's what they're called. Old West Bullet Molds.
Oh, yeah.
Website. 150 grain hollow base. Let me.
Yep.
Suddenly my computer's not. Yeah, I'm sure y'all have used them. Everybody has for if they're shooting Old West.
Yeah. There was a couple questions here. Someone asked, do we ever think that 45 Colt is going to go down in price, still $60 a box? I don't think so.
You got to load your own.
Paying $60 a box because I just seen some for 45.
Yeah,
I can't find 45 around here.
Garrett, when was the last time we bought a box of bullets?
Last time I bought a box of 45 Colt was mid-pandemic. I walked in the store and they wanted $125 for a box of Fiocchi. I came home and I loaded my own from then on.
Yes, sir.
Less than $125 on the loading components.
You know, that was the summer when we got started in flintlocks for some reason.
Yeah.
I started with those Lee loaders, like the $50 little. I saw it on several. I don't know if it was any of your guys' channels, but Guns of the Old West, dude, or Dustin.
Dustin got a video on that.
He did one of those, and I was like, "Oh, I have to try that." And yeah, that's how I started reloading, and it made it super cheap to reload 45 Colt. Just bought, some bullet molds, cast my own lead, made my own powder, and it's really cheap.
Wow. I got a Lyman 310 tool that I started out with, and that thing is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Anybody who shoots any reasonable amount, you have to reload ammo. You have to load your own ammo. I don't know. I don't know who could afford to do it otherwise.
It would be really expensive.
You gotta have a whole bunch of them.
Yes, sir.
Yep. And luckily, when we started reloading, we had a pile of brass left over anyway because we never threw away our brass.
Yeah.
The thing is, 45 Colt is not considered for a lot of people a defensive round. So you got a couple of guns that shoot it. You got your Judges and you got your Derringers and a couple Smith & Wessons, but it's never going to come down because the demand's not as high or whatever thing else, in my opinion, unless you guys think
45 Colt.
No, it's going to continue to go up.
The first time I shot 45 Colt.
You there, Doug?
Yeah. Okay. I thought I didn't want to interrupt. I thought somebody was saying something. The first time I shot 45 Colt, it was just store-bought ammunition using my dad's 5.5-inch Cimarron single-action Army that I'd gotten for Christmas, and I'm just sitting there shooting it with him, and I take out a 38 Special Service revolver. I thought, this 38 Special Service, it feels more powerful than this 45 Colt, but this was just Winchester brown box ammunition bought in the store. And 5 years ago, I started shooting black powder substitutes using 45 Colt. Whoa, this is a completely different animal here.
Yeah.
Most people don't think 45 until they shoot the original load. maybe go get some unique powder with maybe 8 grains behind it, and it becomes something a little more.
Yeah, you can definitely see how 45 Colt would have easily, the whole idea in the beginning was they wanted to be able to kill a horse at a dead trot. And I think 45 Colt with its original loading would definitely do it.
Gina Wood said, "I wish she had." She said, "I wish I had $1 for all the brass I picked up after 3 sons are washed in the washing machine." I wish we had all that brass. Oh, yeah. I don't think.
Oh, man.
I haven't bought 45.
I think when 45 Colt went to smokeless.
What was that?
I think when 45 Colt went to smokeless, it really stepped down. Even back in the early 1900s, I was trying to find it here in my library, but it was a Texas Ranger that. This is just off the top of my head. A Texas Ranger that asked the state of Texas, please don't send me any more smokeless ammo. Send me the black powder. I mean, it penetrates better. I like how he was just really dissatisfied with smokeless powder. This is like in 1916, something like that.
I wonder if it's because a lot of the early smokeless powder, they were worried about people loading it into black powder only guns, so they made it weak so rear gun didn't blow up.
So that's
I'm
what
sure
I'm
that's
thinking.
what it is.
Because you're talking about the 51 Navy being a lot more
I think
powerful than people give credit for.
Yeah, I think that's
the other one is that Smith & Wesson #2, that little 32 rimfire. People for forever had said that 32 rimfire was less powerful than a 22 long rifle. I haven't chronographed it, and it ain't very scientific. We shot a 2-liter water bottle with it, but it did a little more damage than even like a 380. So with what I think we had 14 grains of black powder.
It was basically the same as shooting a 49 pocket model.
Yeah.
Which people don't give 49 pocket model the credit it deserves. That little deal.
No, people who think that 49 pocket model is like a 22 LR in power, there's no way.
Yeah.
I think it's quite a bit more powerful than that. I mean, it's not like crazy powerful, but I think it's probably equivalent to 380 personally.
Yeah, but going back to that, talking about smokeless powder and downloading cartridges because they're afraid their guns were going to blow up. Where we got our original box of brass from was an older box of 32 long, and it was loaded smokeless powder. We had to pull the bullets and reload them. And I think there was like 2, maybe one or 2 grains of just a little bit of powder in the very bottom of the case. And you could tell that it was... It's like, if this is what people are shooting out of this thing, I can guarantee you this round is not as powerful as a 22.
Give me that book off the
I think a lot of the stuff people know today that aren't into these antique guns or aren't into this kind of shooting, that believe that these old guns are going to blow up or they're just overly weak, it's because of their great grandparents or grandparents using these guns with the wrong ammo, or using these early smokeless powder loads that were junk, and they didn't make it very powerful back then.
Doug Duke's out there, guys. This is his book, and he said, reading his book, he said he sees several requests for black powder pistol rounds in the book for the Texas Rangers, and he's out there right now. So yeah, Doug Duke's book, guys, Firearms of the Texas Rangers. Good read.
And I think too is when people would make a new gun,
awesome.
They would always have to have some kind of a, hey, look how great this new thing we're making. It's got to be better than the old stuff. So they would lie about it and say the old stuff was way weaker than it was, or compare it to their smokeless variant that they had downloaded to make it not as strong.
I got a question here for Plowboy that I never had asked. What was your first cap and ball pistol, Plowboy? Well, I would assume 51 Navy because of your reenactment, but I might be wrong.
Nope. It was a Traditions 58 Remington Army, as a matter of fact, course 44 steel frame. It was in 1997, in the summer of 97. I believe I gave something like $75 for it new.
Yeah.
I kept that one for a couple of years.
That actually brings me. I had a question for any of you guys who have done reenacting, especially like I think you did Cavalry reenacting, didn't you, Black or Plowboy?
Yeah, I did. Confederate Cavalry.
Let's say like in the Civil War, you were in the Cavalry, and I know that they had multiple pistols usually. How long?
Not that often.
Okay,
It
not that
depends.
often, but how long? How many times do you think they would have had a chance to reload throughout a battle? Because I know there's going to be highs and lows. How many times do you think it's possible for them to reload throughout a normal skirmish battle?
Well, I don't know what a normal skirmish battle would have been. Not to be,
No, I get it. Just your best guess. Let's say if you were in, I wouldn't say like Gettysburg because that's going to be multiple days long, but a normal skirmish, 2-hour long battle before maybe a lull, 45 minutes to an hour maybe between lulls.
Honestly, I don't know, and it would depend on who you were with. And I know in the past I've answered this question this way and gone back and listened to it, and it sounds almost like I'm evading the question, but I'm not. Really, it depends on
a lot
who you were with, how you were fighting. Are you on a raid? Are you in an organized, an actual battle? And how large is it? What's, how are you operating? Are you on foot? Are you know what I mean? There's just so many variables in it that it's just almost no way to really answer it. If you're, in an encounter, and most of them, it depends. Once again, I'm familiar more with the Army of Tennessee and Forrest in specific and some of his men, and of course, Philip Dale Roddy and them. They were some of them that did not have multiple pistols. As a matter of fact, they were sometimes that, they didn't have a pistol per man. It just depends on where you were, when you were, and, and what you were doing. If you were going into a, like for instance, at one point, Forrest had his command taken away from him, and he was sent out, to re-equip, not necessarily raw recruits, but a new outfit, and to go harass or maybe to whatever he had to do on a raid. He would leave under prepared, under equipped, and come back if it was like at Johnsonville, the Johnsonville raid or something. He would come back with his men much better outfitted, wearing nice shoes, and come back with guns that they could take, and as long as there was ammunition available for it. But a lot of times when they got back, when the next time that I can't remember what you even call it now. This has been a while, but there were times that sometimes some of their stuff was taken away from them,
okay,
and redistributed, which never set well with Forrest. That sometimes led him to threaten the lives of his commanding officers.
I can understand that. That would make sense. That would make you really mad that you acquired this for your own people and they just steal it from them.
Especially at points in time, he was a self-made millionaire before the war. And
I heard about that.
There were times that he actually equipped his own people, not only off of the enemy, but from his own pocket.
He was an
Forrest
interesting
was
fellow.
not the kind of man you wanted to get on his bad side.
That's right. You were more likely to see battle if you were with Forrest than a lot of other people, but you were also more likely to survive.
And he's one of those that used the 1851 Navy, 2 of them, to great effect.
That's funny. They say the same thing about special operations groups. You're more likely to be in a lot of battle, but you're more likely to survive.
He killed 30
men, better equipped, and smarter people doing the job.
He killed 30 men himself and had 29 horses shot out from under, and said in the end he was one ahead.
Not to rephrase Snapper's question, but I think an easier way to ask it is when people talk about the Remington switching cylinders and how they watch these videos and say, how in the world would you survive a battle with a cap and ball revolver? It's so slow to reload. Yeah. I think what he's asking is reloading taking precedence as much as tactics are.
Well, honestly, it's hard to say because in my mind, I don't see a scenario where you can say from one day to the next, one instance to the next, one encounter to the next, one raid to the next, how things are going to go. I don't believe that there were a whole lot of extra cylinders floating around. I believe that
the other thing
feasible.
I believe you were more likely to pick up what you could and fight if you had to.
Yeah. So that goes into what I was going to.
The other thing you got to think about too is the enemy's using the same stuff you are.
Yeah.
Well, the enemy can't reload any faster. They're all using the same thing.
Well, when it comes into long guns, that changes later on. There were things like the Smith carbine and whatever that they couldn't get. The Confederates, like with there were some Confederates that used the Henry, but a lot of them if they couldn't get the ammo for them, then they really didn't have much use for the gun.
To prove your point right there, this is the Merrill carbine used by the North. This is probably at the very bottom of what the North liked to use. They did not care for this thing. A bunch of them got on the B&O Railroad, like a bunch of them, and got captured by the Confederacy. And this bad boy became one of the Confederacy's favorite weapons. God. So it just,
what could possibly go wrong?
It's actually it's
cool.
gun. I just got to make the cartridges for it.
And there were guns that the Confederacy used that we don't really talk about today. It's not one of the things that I've ever seen. Some of them I've never seen a reproduction of. There were Austrian rifles and several different things that they used. If I'm not mistaken, a Lorenz or something else.
Yep, the Lorenz. Yep. But that goes into kind of what I was going to tell you about. I discovered earlier. So I've been working all day on, actually all week, on a video on the British 1733 land pattern flintlock pistol. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because I'm just going through all my different sources, and then I just had to go look at Wikipedia just to see what they had to say and not really use anything off there. But I went through the different wars it fought in, supposedly, and at the very bottom was the Civil War. I thought, well, that's funny. So then I went and looked it up. Evidently, certain militia units, especially bushwhackers, had gotten a hold of them, converted them to percussion cap, and had basically used them as 12-gauge shotguns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me, I found one of those.
But the reason I kind of brought all that up is because I never thought the idea of reloading on horseback would have been very feasible.
Oh, when you're loading with cartridges, I don't know how they were all capping theirs, but, loading with cartridges, if you're slowed down enough,
it's possible.
It just depends. Like if you find yourself, say that your unit's dismounted and every fourth man holds a horse, when 1 through 3 remount, let's say that they're, pursuing the enemy. They've got them on the run and they're going to pursue. 1 through 3 is taken off. 1 through 3 can be reloaded and number 4 can be taken off, all the 4s.
Gotcha.
1 through 3s, getting in the saddle, they're getting reloaded and they're tearing out right after them. And it's kind of a leapfrog thing.
Right.
Okay. And the reason all of this is kind of being asked is because, and I know this is not going to be from the Confederate side, unfortunately. Well, maybe not. But I just bought that 1860 that was blown up, and it looks like it's a northern gun. It may have been, who knows, but it, to us, like just going back and forth, it looks like it most likely blew up in the war because it looks brand new underneath the gun, and it was definitely a squib load that blew it up, and I'll go into that when we show the video on why we think what we think. But what's interesting is the cylinders that were in the gun, they had shown that lots of loading. Like it looked like there is a lot of lead that's still left inside the cylinders. Like when this gun did blow up, it had been reloaded multiple times.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, I mean, if you're a foot soldier, I guess that's possible, but I didn't think you'd be using your pistol that much, personally.
Well, and I don't know what the federal regulations were, but as far as the foot soldier in the North having a pistol on their side, I don't know how common it was because I didn't study nothing but them getting killed and running.
Right.
So,
if you look at the Northern tactics for the Cav, the primary arm for the Cav was a saber.
Right.
That's what I was the mounted use. And that's why Mosby's men on the Confederate side whooped up on the cavalry because Mosby's men are one of the few units where everybody, all the men in that unit had 2 pistols.
Yeah.
And they'd right into it, and about 30 feet out, they'd start shooting. And those battles, you're talking a couple minutes, and they'd have the enemy wiped out. And that's because the U.S. Cav would draw sabers while Mosby's men rides in and just start shooting. For the U.S. Cav, the pistol was the last ditch. So it was a saber mounted. It was the carbine dismounted. And then if you lost your saber or, things were really going downhill, then the pistol would come out. You see that not so much happening out here in the West. So at the same time, like with your state units up here at Fort Laramie, 11th Ohio Cav, 7th Kansas, they found out, when it comes to Plains Indian warfare, That saber doesn't really do a lot. It will spook the natives when they see all the sabers come out and gleaming. But once the battle gets started, they're pretty much pulling the pistols and they're shooting them. And then, try to get regrouped, reloaded, or dismount, throw some skirmishers up with the carbines, and then try to hold them off as long as you can. But a lot of the little skirmishes didn't take place long enough for people to have to reload in the middle of combat. They are so fast and so done so quickly. You fire your 6 shots, and then there's no point in reloading real fast because there's nobody left around.
Well, out here in the East during the war, there actually were some prolonged confrontations. It just depended, not necessarily so much. I'm talking about, once again, with force men. It wasn't a whole lot of standing out in the open, and stuff like that. Force men, they would actually, when they had them, they would use, pistols. As a matter of fact, after a certain point, he had banished sabers from his command. He said, if you were close enough to cut them, you're close enough to shoot them.
Shoot them.
Yep. If they had the guns, and that's the problem. Is as time went on, at certain points starting out, they didn't have as much. They started out one way and they finished another way with equipment. So they're just, there's too many variables in it to say how it would go. But Forrest was also the kind of man who would put his artillery. If you've ever imagined someone using their artillery to charge the enemy with the artillery, he did it. They did. They charged. Morton's bullpups actually charged the enemy.
They do just abandon the cannons and start charging, or
no. I mean the cannons. They would move the cannons. The canister.
Yeah. So in what you've reenacted, I'd have to say, is the emphasis more on the carbine than on the pistols?
Well, if you do it accurately, and and I don't know what's going on today. There are different levels of authenticity in reenacting. You've got what we used to call the Farby, the big carnival type reenactments, and then you've got the living histories and not just the living history, but we had tacticals and stuff. Even there wasn't even no, in a tactical, you didn't even have spectators. And that kind of stuff, they would put more emphasis on doing it the way they did it. And if you were reenacting a force-on-force, head-on, surprise engagement, then you were doing more with close combat and pistols and whatever. But most times, if Forrest had the option and the ground was, perfect for it or right for it, they dismount. Every fourth man hold a horse, and they dismount, fight on foot with long guns. And force men, if they had the option, would use natural cover as much as they could.
Yeah, they were more guerrilla-ish to the way they fought.
To a degree.
To a degree, right. He used intelligence instead of just let's do it because this is the way we were taught to do it. He changed it around for, hey, what's smart to do versus what's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Forrest had no military training whatsoever.
None. He had actually went and tried to get in on the Mexican War, and he ended up, I believe he arrived out in the area late or whatever, but he didn't end up being any part of that.
That could be why he was so good.
Well, he was.
I know that sounds dumb, but it's probably a lot of people get used to the way they're taught versus what they're actually looking at and what should be the best thing done, and they're looking at the way they were taught to do it.
He was. He was basically a frontiersman, and he had his dad had died, a long time back, and he helped take care of the family and raise his brother. I believe he had a sister, Fanny, too, but I can't remember how long she lived. But anyway, he grew up, in scraps, in fights, working hard. He was 40 or 41 when the war started, so he already had a pretty good idea. He had enough. He had enough sense. They called him illiterate, but he had a head full of sense. He's a military genius, is what he was, just natural genius. And, he had everything that it took. He had enough life experience in fights with both wildlife and with other people that he knew, how to react to a fight. And they said that they were surprised that he lived, he would live, didn't think he would live long in battle because they said his face took on the appearance of a quote unquote painted warrior, and he would lose his cool and go wild in battle with bloodlust. But it worked for him.
Yep.
Apparently,
his guys didn't all die, so his guys were fairly well known to have made it through.
Oh,
Franklin
yeah.
Horse has been asking this question of everything black powder quite a few times. I missed it. He wants to know if you're still looking to make some grapevine black powder, and if you need any, he might have some.
Oh, we have plenty of grapevine around here. In fact, I don't think I ever did a video on grapevine black powder, but I could do that if enough people care. But it makes fine black powder.
Be interesting to see.
That would be interesting.
My question for Plowboy is: at reenactments, do you see a bunch of oddball guns, or they're all pretty much the same that they let them carry?
At a reenactment, you'd see pretty much the same stuff. Typically around here, a lot of them come from Dixie Gun Works, and some other places like where I used to get my stuff out of War Trace, Tennessee at the Blockade Runner. And of course, I actually had, a bunch of stuff ordered from Cabela's way back when I could get a 36, the best 1851 Navy that Pieta had through Cabela's. I could get them for $110 shipped. I'd order them 2 at a time.
I want to do reenacting so bad. Just at least
I don't even
once,
know
just to do it.
I don't even know if it's still big anymore.
Did you see a lot of guys that, because a lot of reenactors, it depends on your unit and everything, but back in the day, did you see a lot of guys that were carrying the Spiller and Burr, or maybe a Dance, or no, nobody was
Griswold?
No, back then you might see some people with some brass frame whatevers, but generally speaking, it depended on where you were and what outfits putting the reenactment on, because some had different authenticity standards than others, and some were better than others. We had fun at all of them. Y'all don't get me wrong, and the spectators enjoyed it, but you kind of get to a point I did where I started paying more attention to the stitch count. Not to be stitch Nazis, but I started paying attention to the things and tried to be more and more and more authentic. And more that I did that, the less that I enjoyed the carnivals. Where we actually had to stop a charge. We had to halt the charge for a red light. That's not. We did on a paved road for a red light. We had to halt the charge and let the traffic go.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that was in Loretta, Tennessee.
That's funny.
I'm gonna go ahead and cut in on this. Snapper, first off, and I know that Duke brought it up, is if you haven't already, I'd check out 11th OVC, their channel.
Yes, I've heard of it. I've seen them.
Yeah, I mean, he goes into detail exactly kind of to the extent of what you're asking. And I think he might have a video on it, but that's where he talks about how the Saber was the primary. So I don't know if he really covers reloading, but that's where I would look first.
I think it was his video. I saw him on a track reloading with his horse at at different speeds of gallop. And it was something like it technically took him like 14 minutes to reload a cylinder.
Okay.
On a small, not even a run. But yeah, that's kind of why I was wondering to see how realistic it really is. Just because looking at this gun, I mean, it's interesting to see that it has traces that it was fired a lot before it blew up.
Mm-hmm.
And that I just find that interesting because I wouldn't expect the gun to have been fired a lot, and I expect it to have been cleaned probably more than it was fired.
Yeah.
But
you have to bear in mind too, Snapper, early in the war, they weren't lubing a lot of Colt Cartridge Works bullets. So that would leave a lot of leading even with a few shots. Now to add on to that about reloading, the generals were complaining that the guns were binding up after so many shots. So obviously they were reloading some because they went to dipping, Colt Cartridge Works went to dip in the bullets and wax so that it wouldn't bind up after so many shots.
The Remingtons or what?
No, the Colts.
No, Colts too.
Everything.
So I do have a question for Plowboy though, since you've mentioned your reenactment days. Were you ever a part of the NSSA, and what do you think of it?
The North-South Skirmish Association, I would have loved to have done that, actually live firing in competition, but I never was any part of that. I would have loved to have done it though.
Okay.
That'd be fun. I need to go to that side of the country.
I got to bring up the fact that I just got an alert on my phone that someone here just uploaded a video.
Oh, yeah, I did.
No.
Oh.
Not you. They are American.
Oh.
And I know that you have the particular items there in your lap or close by that you uploaded on. What's that all about? I haven't got a chance to see it, of course, because we're all here.
That's it's almost done. I got to put the front sight on it, and then when the firing pin goes, there's a little recoil plate that's got to go in there because otherwise, when you shoot it, the primer's back out just enough where it locks it up.
Gotcha.
But there's that one. Hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, I'll actually be shooting that one, and then there's that one. So I like things that are different.
Don't you? Is that your third one or just your second one?
Just two. I've just got two now. The next one, when I find a really cheap 1911, I'm going to fit special a 1911 like the Texas.
That'll be cool.
Wow. That'll be interesting.
That'll be interesting.
Well, there was Lone Wolf Gonzalez was a Texas Ranger. He carried Fit Special 1911.
Ha! That's interesting. Not to cut in on you on that, but I remember when all that started. He sent me a picture.
You started that.
He sent me a picture one day, and he goes, "What is this?" And I think he already knew what it was, but I told him, "Well, that's a Fit Special made by Fitz in the Colt factory, 1922 or whatever." And I told him I was like, Lucky Lindy carried one, and a lot of people really liked them. And then he said, I said, I've thought about making one. He said, well, let's make one. He said, you cut one up and I'll cut one up. And I got to looking at one, and I about bought it. And I was like, I'm going to cut this thing up. And I couldn't. And then he sends me a picture about a couple hours later. He's got the barrel off, the trigger guards off. He done got his cut to pieces.
Hey, Garrett, I am going to get that 450 Nitro Express double barrel rifle. Get back on that here pretty soon for you.
I'd love to see
That'd
that.
be cool.
I'm more interested in the 1911 Fit Special now. I don't even know how that'd work. That'd be cool.
I gotta find one cheap enough that's, like some Spanish llama or something. I'm not gonna cut up a nice gun. I'm just not.
You know those
Are you shorten the barrel, or because you'd have to do bushings
No,
and all that?
they just cut the trigger guard off. Literally, that's the only thing they did. There was no trigger guard at all on it.
Well, some people on YouTube are really going to love you for that, and some people on YouTube
And
are
I
going
hate
to.
I just do what I do because
can't be loved by everybody.
I like to do things different,
Yep, no kidding. When you sent me those pictures, I thought, well, I can't do it, but he sure went through with it. He went through with it fast, too.
Once I get an idea in my head, I won't stop until I figure out how to do it.
Awesome.
I was going to do it to a 32, but like I said, maybe one of these days.
Well, you got one. If I can ever figure out how to get it to you, I gave you one to cut up.
Yeah, it's getting hard to ship stuff.
Yeah.
The Cook's in. Howdy, Cookie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he wanted you to talk about war crimes.
Oh, yeah.
You got anything to say about war crimes?
Oh.
They're bad. Don't do it.
Well,
Snapper will get this reference. Napalm sticks to kids.
I think everybody gets that reference nowadays. Oh, yeah. So anyway, guys,
it's not as hard. Just don't lead as much.
We're going to run for about 10 more minutes here, go right to 2 hours, and then we're going to shut it down. This has been pretty good. You guys got any more questions in the chat? Throw them out there. Sorry if I missed any, but we've been having good conversation here. What's the matter? Oh. Never mind. We ain't going to say that. We'll get in trouble. But, Duke, we're going back to the sabers versus the pistols. One thing I had to ask you, isn't that why the saber is meant to be drawn with the right hand, but the pistol for the U.S. Cavalry for so long was to be drawn with the left or reversed with the right?
So there's that thing that's been going around, and what it comes down to, the reason they put the pistol on the right-hand side butt forward was not for really a left-hand draw.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever tried getting on a horse and you have the pistol on the right-hand side with it straight up and down, it does interfere with your leg swinging over. And when you have the carbine on a sling thrown over your shoulder, it's just that much more to get in the way. So they reversed the holster, stuck it backwards so that you can throw your leg over the horse. It doesn't get in the way. It doesn't hang up on anything. They couldn't put it on the right or on the left-hand side because the saber was already there. So it's going to be interfering with the draw on the saber. So that's basically what it comes down to, is that was the only place that they could logically put it on the belt.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing of it being drawn and with the left hand and then using a saber with the right. The only thing I got a problem with that is you got the pistol in your left hand, a saber in your right hand. How are you steering the horse?
Most of
His teeth.
most of the cavalry reenactors I know, literally, once you got your horse where it's going to be what you're going to do, especially in reenacting, a lot of the guys I know drop the reins. They tie them and drop them on the horn, or not the horn, depending on your saddle. But I know a lot of guys who will. We do a reenacting of a wagon train scene where they take 80 wagons and they will put them in this big canyon and they'll circle them. And then they'll have a bunch of Indians come in and attack the wagon train. Not really historically accurate, but that's how they do it just for the show. And then they have the cavalry run in there. Every year somebody gets hurt because these people are shooting blanks, just riding flat out around these wagon trains.
Certain people get drunker as the
as the days go by. They do it 3 days in a row. But a lot of those guys that really want to put on a show, they'll take 251 Navies, one in each hand, either hold the reins in their teeth or drop them. And they will just flat out run them horses in a circle amongst everybody. Just
is that on day 3?
When everybody's at the drunkest.
A lot of times they will, on that scene, they will check your guns when they leave, and they want to make sure you're empty. You got all 12 off within this amount of time because they want the show to be good.
So I'm sitting down there with a 45-70 trying to do a mad minute with a trap door.
I'm always a scout inside the wagon train at that point, so I have a pretty good time.
I always ride shotgun on the wagon.
I wouldn't get in that mess on a horse if they paid me $100.
I went in there with the trap door as a kid and got yelled at by the wagon drover. I may have ran out there in front of the horses with a 45-70. Yeah, that was not a good deal.
When you're trying to hold a couple of Clydesdales down and some kid runs up with a 45-70 and starts blasting.
Well, in my defense, one of them Indians.
I don't think there was any defense.
He was coming into the wagon train with a double barrel shotgun, so
that was fun times.
Yeah,
that's wild.
The same thing you get shot at. Garrett, you said you got shot with the rubber bullet or
there was a mistake, and I took a 44 Magnum. Guy for some reason he was carrying, of all things, a Super Blackhawk for a reenactment. But we're like a long ways away from the crowd. You're like at least 300 yards away from a crowd. Usually a couple thousand people there. Do it every 4 years, and he come up behind me and he started shooting, and he got his gun down about 3 feet away from me, put that whack blank right in the middle between my shoulder blades.
That same Indian I was talking about shot right in the chest with a 12 gauge wax blank.
Well, it actually, I don't know if it shocked me or if it was, I went forward in the saddle and the horse stepped sideways because there was a horse bucking in front of me. This actually happened during a stampede scene. And the horse in front of me started bucking. This happened at the same time. My horse went this way. I went sideways this way. About 25 mile an hour landed right on that shoulder. That was probably the worst horse wreck I ever had up to that point. It was exciting.
Was it the blank that hurt your shoulder?
No, the blank didn't hurt me near as bad as the fall. I guarantee you.
Who was it?
Now, if you were drunk, it wouldn't have hurt so bad.
That's probably what I should have done, huh?
Who was it who somebody rode right up to somebody's horse with a blank and it was a 45 Colt and just black powder blank right in the horse?
I'm not gonna say who did that. It wasn't me, but
that's messed up.
We've had a lot of reenactment fun. Let's put it that way. But yeah, in those kind of deals, the reenactment is over so fast because it's just scene after scene after scene, and you don't get a chance to reload. But they want you to shoot every round because they want to see all that smoke for the crowd.
The same one where they
one thing.
You're not wearing a hat.
You're not wearing.
One thing I'd add to that on, as you saying, tying the reins and dropping them on the back of the horse. One thing to also keep in mind: your average cavalry trooper, when they joined the Army, probably hadn't been on the back of a horse, and if they had, it hadn't been that much. And it was mostly riding, around on the farm. So yeah, trying to maintain control of that horse in combat, especially if you're a raw recruit, you're going to want to keep those reins in your hand because, if you look at most recruits and even into the Indian Wars, majority of the recruits were foreigners, either German, Irish, a handful of Italians, a lot of them immigrants coming in. Like I said, they've never been on a horse. A lot of them hadn't even shot a gun. Of course, by the time they got done with the war, they were some of the best horsemen around, but you got to survive that long to get there.
Couldn't imagine being in charge of that many people that, you know, you don't know who speaks what language or what.
Well, the thing is, George Custer went to the Little Bighorn with a lot of raw recruits that fell into that, and we all know how that one turned out.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is,
is that the reason he had him dismount? We've discussed this for a lot of time. When he rode up in the middle of that village and saw what was coming after him, he backs up to the hill and dismounts, right? As his guys dismount to fight.
And
why in the world did they keep riding?
That was still a cavalry tactic at the time, was to form a skirmish line. So they dismount, they use the carbines. They didn't have sabers with them. They left the sabers behind so they wouldn't rattle, wouldn't make noise, wouldn't give themselves away. And the thing is, those sabers, they kept the scabbards, which are iron, steel, they kept those brightly polished. So you're going to be giving yourself away from miles away, having those just from the glint. The rattling noise, if you're traveling after dark, is going to give you away. So they left the sabers behind, and all they had was the pistols and the carbines. And so, yeah, once he realizes that, oh boy, you know, things are a little bit hairy here, go up, you form a skirmish line and try to hold them back. But when you've only got about 500 men and 2,000 screaming natives that aren't very happy that you're there, it doesn't take very long to wipe them out. And, you know, when the natives have these that can shoot 14 rounds and as fast as you can run the action, and those poor cavalry troopers that were given 3 rounds a year for target practice, that's it. 3 rounds. That's target practice in the Army. They don't fare all that well.
Hey,
I know that.
Them do you sitting there thinking, man, I wish I had my Spencer back.
Well, they also fired a lot of their rounds from a fair distance and were pretty much out of ammunition by the time the Indians started charging, if I remember correctly.
Well, I've heard that a lot, but when you actually look at the fight, Custer rode right smack up to the edge of the middle of that village, like right to the edge. And then he backed up the hill. I've heard that a lot, but the distance they're closing is literally like 400 yards or less. And on a horse, you can do that pretty fast. So I've heard that, and I don't know if that's the case. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'd have to ask Duke, and he just left.
That was a great video they made where they actually used the like battlefield tactic. Like they used the crime scene investigation on that battle, looking at guns that they knew were at the battle and even brass cases, and they could match the bullets to the gun, and they could actually start understanding which direction people were firing and what guns were picked up and shot back at them. It was a really interesting documentary, and it kind of showed that it was kind of more of a very fast and over for them pretty quickly, and it was not very well. They kind of more got panicked and ran, and all got cut down for the most part. Mm-hmm. Tactics didn't last too long for them, unfortunately.
Hey, but just going back to what you said there, I really need to study it more because the picture looks like from Last Stand Hill to where those natives mounted and come at him. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just doesn't look like it's more than 500 yards.
Well, I think what you're thinking about and what I'm thinking about are 2 different areas, because I remember they had 2 companies form 2 skirmish lines. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking of the one company that was not on Last Stand Hill that they started taking pot shots at them from well over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, that was.
You're talking about Benteen.
Yes.
Duke's back. He can clear this up. He's pretty well. Yeah. Duke, we're just talking about that. How that when I look at the battlefield, it doesn't look that far from the edge of the village to Last Stand Hill. But I think he's talking about Benteen taking 1,000-yard pot shots at the Indians, his outfit from way further back. What's the deal?
So Benteen was a lot further back because, you know, Custer sent him out to scout for any possible village. Basically, Custer sent Benteen and Reno out to get away from him because he didn't want his naysayers close by. But, yeah, Benteen gets sent out with the mule train. You know, Reno goes in, does the first charge. But yeah, they were taking pot shots, and Reno, after he got routed, he gets back up on the hill, and they start taking pot shots down at the Indians as the Indians are heading over towards Custer.
Yeah. But
Benteen
how far
survived
away
the fight, did he not?
What's
I
that?
believe Benteen did survive the fight.
Yeah.
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 He did
Benteen
well.
survived, Reno survived, and I believe it was their two companies are the only companies that survived the attack out of the entire 7th. There may have been one more in there. I cannot remember.
Now, the way I understand it, and Duke tells it much better, is before they even get close, Custer says, Reno, go down the tree on the other side. Benteen, go out scout for some unknown reason way away and wait for the wagon train, right? For Benteen, wait for supplies. He sends
Right. Well, mule train, because they didn't take wagons on that one, but yeah.
That's what I meant. But when Custer gets in trouble, he sends a scout to Benteen, right? And the scout
he sends a young private that was Italian.
Yeah, couldn't speak the language. Something like that.
Yeah, his English wasn't very good at all.
Talk about
and
if you watch the movie Son of the Morning Star, that's one of the things they get right is they have that Italian kid go over to deliver orders to Benteen.
And Benteen's guys are like, we need to ride to the sound of the guns. Benteen sees what's coming down on Custer and makes the smartest move he could make in his military career and says, I was told to wait for the mule train. That's what we're going to do. He said, dig in. And that's really what saved his unit, because I think even if he rode in, he got wiped out.
Yeah.
But
so Benteen, he gets back with Reno and they form a defensive line. And then, for all intents and purposes, they thought they were going to be wiped out. And they very well could have been. But at that point, the village was starting to move. And so the warriors are basically holding down Benteen and Reno while the rest of the village could escape. And then by the next day, everything was pretty well done. But Captain Weir, he was with Benteen and he was under Benteen's command. Yeah, so that was the other company, was Weir's company. Weir wanted to go to Custer's aid, and Weir took off, and Weir gets hit hard. Mm-hmm. And then, he turns around, runs back. By then, Benteen had his troops pretty well entrenched in, and so they laid down volley fire, and they managed to hold off the native onslaught. But, yeah, they really Benteen and Reno could not have done anything to have saved Custer. If they would have stayed with Custer through the whole battle, they'd have got wiped out too.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's anything that could have happened that could have saved the 7th? Anything possible?
The one thing that could have saved the 7th would have been to not put Custer in charge.
No, Custer had that the tactic he would use to ride out and then pretty much get the women and children and then get the rest of the people to surrender. Do you think that would have actually worked in this case?
No, because it almost did not work at the Washita.
Okay. Well, there's so many people in this one too.
Custer came pretty close to being wiped out there, but the fact that he did manage to capture a few women and children and stagger them throughout his command, that's the only reason he wasn't wiped out. But yeah, that tactic worked, and so he thought he'd use it again, and it didn't happen. Now, if he would have got a surprise attack at dawn, maybe things might have went around the other way. But if you look at the way that his commanding officer, not Miles, Terry, the way Terry worded the orders, basically he worded it so that he'd come out looking shiny either way, because he told Custer to wait, but if he's got the opportunity to attack. And he should have not told Custer that.
Custer could have.
But yeah, though there's a lot of people that say that if Custer would have had the Gatling guns, he would have survived. That's absolutely true, because they'd have slowed him down long enough that he wouldn't have got there and found the village. Miles probably would have ran into him first.
Here's how Custer stays in charge and survives. 3 days before the fight, he listens to Benteen and Reno. If he just took their advice, I believe, and several other guys' advice, especially his scouts are like, they've seen that box we dropped back there. They know we're here.
Yep.
What'd you say it was? The trail that they're leaving is 300 yards wide.
And that's one trail. And the scouts had found three trails that size. They estimate about 600 people per trail. You're already outnumbered.
Yeah, if he'd have just listened to the people around him, he'd have.
And I always point this out when I'm doing my talks there at Fort Laramie is, you know, how important scouts were. You have the perfect example of two officers, one that listens to his scouts and one that doesn't. Crook listens to his scouts, and Crook, for the most part, he didn't come out 100% successful, but he did come out with fewer casualties. He didn't really get himself in too much of a bind. Custer, his scouts just kept telling him, don't do this, don't do this. Every one of them said, don't go there. There's too many natives. You're outnumbered. You won't survive. And Custer just said, no, I'm going. I'm going to go and fight and get glory. And the scouts that told him not to go the night before said, well, we're not going to live to see the next day. And every one of those scouts that said that, they did not live to see that next day.
And I've heard I'm actually still hearing the excuse that this is actually Reno's fault, which is something that Mrs. Custer started, as I believe.
Right, yeah, because Libby Custer said a lot of things to try to save her husband's image.
I seriously think they were better. Custer
Reno,
a situation of fighting in the Civil War where he got away with it because it was a different kind of situation.
Right. But they say that, you know, Reno was drunk. He may have been drunk at that time. He certainly was under shell shock as it started out. But at the same time, things didn't time out right because Reno hit that village and was routed before Custer really even got into the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time Custer got to the middle, the Indians knew that Reno was routed. The main force had already turned around and started going in to the other side. Now, if they timed that better to where Custer would have hit one side and Reno the other, might have came out a little bit better. But I think if Benteen would have sent, or if Custer would have sent Benteen with Reno, that may have turned the tide a bit.
Yeah.
Even though they were outnumbered.
Yeah, because the whole tactic of capturing women and children, they might have been more successful because if Benteen would have been with Reno, that fighting force might have lasted just a little bit longer, long enough for Custer to get into position. But the thing is, Custer didn't really believe the scouts when the scouts told him how big this village was. That's why he rode into the middle of it.
Yeah, he thought he was riding to the end, doesn't he? Didn't he think he was riding to the end of the village?
Yeah, Custer.
Yeah, he was going to ride to the other end of the village because with the attack, with Reno's attack coming in, the warriors come towards Reno. The non-combatants go out the other side. And then you capture the non-combatants, and then you start negotiations. And like I said, the village was too big. He rides into the middle of it. Well, by the time he realizes that and starts going down to the other end, Reno's routed. The majority of the warriors are coming back the other way. And by the time that they start surrounding them on the hill, the women are over picking up arms and ammunition off of Reno's dead troops, and they're sending them up to the warriors up on the hill. And they did some testing up there at Little Bighorn, where they take cartridges that they found and they were firing them through guns, or they were, some of them they was firing through guns, some of the guns to see if the guns were actually there. But they was able to do that FBI testing on the primers, and they could find out that, oh, this gun was down here. Then all of a sudden it's up here on the Indian side of Custer's last stand hill.
Yeah, that crime scene investigation technique they did in that battle, it really shows exactly what really happened. And yeah, it's quite amazing. It's quite amazing.
We talk about it a lot. We talk about the Indian side and we talk about Custer. Over the last few years that I've been really discussing this with Duke, since he's done years of study on it and it's been part of his job to know, I've really started feeling for the poor old soldiers that were with Custer that not a lot of people talk about. Could you imagine backing up, seeing thousands of Indians coming, dismounting on a bald knob?
Yep.
If you don't use your horse for cover, which the guys were holding the horses, so they weren't using them for cover, could you imagine? They had a blade of grass on that knob to hide behind.
No, and
I feel bad for Benteen's guys, honestly, because if you're looking out and you're seeing your own, your fellow units out there getting completely slaughtered, I mean, you're gonna be thinking about yourself too, but at the same time, you're gonna want to Even though you know it's not the best idea in the world, you're still going to want to go come to their rescue, even if you know you're not going to make it. That would have been a really hard pill to swallow. A really hard pill to swallow.
And Benteen said he saw mist coming in. He couldn't understand why the whole valley was covered in mist drifting towards him. And when it got there, it was gun smoke.
Oh,
yeah. Cloud 50 feet high, mile long, just rolling around the ground, gun smoke. That's how much gunfire was going off down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they say that the natives say that the battle took as long as a hungry man takes to eat a full meal.
Yeah.
So things actually happen pretty darn quick.
I think that crime scene thing said that it was pretty much all over for Custer people in less than like 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes or something like that. It wasn't very long.
And it is very similar to the Fetterman massacre. You know, even though the troops have the high ground, which, you know, technically if you have the high ground, you have the advantage. The problem is that, you know, even if you got the high ground, if you're outnumbered and they're coming in from all sides, that high ground don't do you any bit of good.
Form a square.
Yeah.
We're surrounded, sir. Well, we got the enemy where we want them.
And a lot of people will say it was because the European used or the civilized tactics wouldn't work. And I pointed this out that around that same time on the continent of Africa, at a place called Rourke's Drift.
Yeah, they were
way more.
Yeah,
there weren't as many arms on the native side, but they were way more outnumbered. But they used better tactics. They had time to draw their guys up and use what do you call that? I call it the roller coaster of death, but whatever you want to call it.
Right. And you're also seeing outdated tactics, Napoleonic tactics that are still being used in guerrilla warfare. And it took the Army a long time to figure out that those old tactics needed to change. And the Little Bighorn's going to change a lot of things. It's going to change how the Army views marksmanship, training, the ammunition they use, the tactics that they're going to use. And after that, I mean, you're pretty much going to see the saber really kind of disappear as a primary arm for the U.S. Army.
That was the main reason they got rid of the copper, wasn't it? The copper shells.
Yeah, and that was the other thing is copper. Yeah, they'd say after 3 rounds, those copper rounds would just foul up so bad that they couldn't eject them. And so they start going to brass. I think it's 1884 is when things really start to change. They changed the extractor system a bit on the Springfields. They changed the sights. But the big thing they bring in is the marksmanship program, to where they actually have troopers. Instead of getting 3 rounds a year, well, you go out, you know, once a month and shoot 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds. Because even through the Civil War, the Army's major concern is we don't want the troops out there wasting ammunition.
Yeah.
But a lot of good it does to save ammunition if you ain't got the troops alive to shoot it.
Yeah.
Garza.
So yeah, it is volley fire, but it's a different kind of volley fire. It's actually firing by section.
The thing is, at Rourke's Drift, the British were the natives in Africa had guns too.
Yeah,
but not maybe as many, but way you're talking 30, 40,000 natives coming down on these guys. And all they have is single shot breech loading weapons, but they survive because their commander puts them in square formation and fires in ranks, and it's just a continuous volley of fire.
Also took over the mission.
Contrary to what happened to Islandawana that same day.
Yeah,
Yep.
they got wiped out. Didn't they?
Yep. So the tactics could work if you had a man in charge that could implement them correctly.
But didn't that war trip still have some kind of a cover?
That's what they had cover. Yeah, that's another difference.
I mean, it's not much, but it's better than a blade of grass, I guess.
Because they actually went over there and they took over that mission. They were like, "Hey, this is ours now." If you ever want to leave,
if you ever watch that old movie from the 70s, Zulu, I call it the Carousel of Death or the Ferris Wheel of Death, because they show it because they don't just drop down, raise up, fire, drop down. The guys in the front drop down, but the guys behind them step over them, stand and fire, and they have 3. Yeah, and it really, if you're looking from the side, it looks like a Ferris wheel, just rolling forward with continuous fire.
Yep.
And it worked for them.
And you know, like an enemy that as big as them coming back the next day just to kind of give them a salute for how well they did. That's pretty impressive.
The commander at Rourke's Drift was an engineer. Something my father pointed out to me years ago. Some of the best commanders in history have been engineers. Robert E. Lee was an engineer. George Washington was an engineer.
Yeah.
I think General MacArthur was an engineer.
That's something cool to point out.
It is. I didn't think of that, but yeah, you're right.
Boxes. Yeah.
It's just
they did that. That was their advantage. They had cover.
When you're designing,
the way their minds work, they're very smart people. The way they think, they're very interesting to talk to.
So I guess when you're designing any kind of anything, I mean, you're understanding the way it works, and then if you're in the military as an engineer, you're designing things for combat, and then you see how they work, so you know how to implement them properly.
So I'll cut in on that. I think I'm going to give a little bit of credit to the NCO who actually works for that officer, made him look good, or did their job, that officer out of fire. So I wouldn't say it's the engineer officer. I'd say it's the NCO in charge. Hey, sir, I'm going to save your ass.
Oh, another thing about the NCO.
Well, I mean, the NCO Corps is the backbone of all militaries. Sorry.
Well, maybe one of these days I'll be one.
One of these days. And I know one of us here is not an NCO, but he is an officer.
Yeah. Here's the thing. If Custer had used even the slightest bit of planning ahead or even just stopped, he could have had cover. He could have dug in before the natives got even to him. They could have dug in with their were they using spade bayonets then or just spades, Duke?
They didn't have bayonets. Cavalry did not have bayonets.
Yeah, that's right. But they did have spades in their pack to dig in, because I know that Benteen's guys dug in. With their knives,
don't remember if they had the spades or not, because I think that spade entrenching tool is what it's called. I don't think they had those issued out until after the fact. I may be wrong on that one, but when they were digging in, it's fingers. If you happen to have a knife, there's some accounts of guys using the butts of their rifles to dig with.
That wouldn't be fun.
So it was with whatever you had.
Long story short, they could have made cover with a little bit of planning.
Right. But to give you an idea, it's like when the Army would adopt something new, it took a lot of years for it to get into use. So in 1876, Custer's men are dressed in 1872 uniforms, even though in 74 that uniform was completely redesigned. They're using their saddlebags are the 1859 McClellan saddlebag. The Army has swapped that saddlebag out twice since then. There was 1872. They found out that one didn't work so good because it was made out of canvas. So in 1874, they basically did the same thing, only it was all leather. That saddlebag would have allowed for more ammunition, more tools and such. Custer's men didn't have them. They were still carrying, the 1872 holster, even though there would have been two other holsters that had come out since then. So it took a long time for the Army to get new tools out. So even though I think it was 74, it was 1874, they come out with an entrenching tool. They wouldn't have had, a lot of troops wouldn't have those yet.
And what's funny is they had Spencers before that and went backwards.
Why did they switch them out so quick?
And the big thing on the Spencer, the reason they went from the Spencer to the trapdoor, it all came down to firepower.
Hey guys, give me just a minute. I gotta get a phone charger. My phone's about to die.
In the Army.
We're about to go anyway. But I was gonna just to switch over. Last thing I want to talk about here was Slick Six Guns. I was watching a video on Santee's channel the other day. You were on it and you had a Spencer. What is your Spencer and where'd you get it? What's it shoot? What do you think about it?
Okay. Well, it's a Chiappa Army Sport. So essentially a U-birdie. And it shoots 45 Colt. So it's a modern reproduction, shoots modern ammo, nothing like the 56 or 56, 56, 56 or 5650. I have run it in competition, so it is capable of being used. Is it fast? It is not at all. Fast for the time that it was developed, yes. And my opinion of it is, I think I prefer my Henry.
Yeah, I would say so. But you still have everyone I've ever seen seems to have you have to have it pointed up to open it. Do you have that issue or to get the shell out?
I keep it at all my guns. I keep it the shoulder. I literally just lever it, and as I'm levering it, I'm coming back and pulling the hammer back, and then I come forward, pull the lever, and then pull the trigger.
And it gets the shell out even at level.
Yes.
Okay.
You have
And
to.
that's just- you said
You
it's
can't
expensive?
baby that thing. You can't baby it at all.
Yeah.
What
You talking about
what is your 45 Colt or 4440?
It's 45 Colt. You're talking about my Spencer, right?
Or no, I thought you said you prefer your Henry.
I can't hear you. What?
I thought you said you prefer your Henry. Did you?
Yeah, I prefer my Henry to my Spencer.
Okay, so but your Henry is 45 Colt. You said.
No, I have a Henry that isn't 4440.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Just kidding.
We have not a spoiler alert. We might possibly have an original 65 and 5650 coming. We're probably going to put the center fire block in it, but we may try some of those cap rimfire rounds. We'll see how it works. But I was just wondering because everyone I ever see, nobody seems to be able to get it to eject from the shoulder. But you got to throw it hard, huh?
Yep, that's what I do.
And if you look in some of the historical things, that was one of the things the Army moved away from the Spencers. With the copper cases, they were having problems with them clear back into the Spencers, only they didn't jam as bad as the Springfields. But, yeah, they point them to the sky to eject and then point them to the ground to load the next one in because gravity is your friend. And that ejector system, it's not really an ejector, it's an extractor, and it just pulls that case out. It doesn't really kick it out; it just pulls it out.
Right.
I would imagine your rules of competition don't allow you to go up and down, right?
If you do it consciously and carefully, yes, you can. But we're not using antique ammunition; we're using more modern types.
Right.
So and I'm not using black powder. That might have something to do with it. It's not causing the straight wall case to seize up into the breech, so I can kick it out pretty easily. I have had problems with feeding rounds in more than I have ejecting out, just because there's several screw points that come loose over time, and it causes the lever to jam up.
Interesting.
Yeah. But
Well,
I'm curious to see how much you paid for that Spencer. How much, huh?
I'll let you know if we get it. I'll let you know if we get it.
It's not looking too bad at the
It's not. It's looking pretty good at the moment. Looking like it might. There's might be that, and there might be an original trapdoor, a 73 carbine, Cavalry carbine coming in too. But I can't
Awesome.
confirm or deny yet. If we're gonna, I'll let you know tomorrow.
Yeah, let me know. I'm curious because I told Snapper I've got a 60 and a Spencer, and I've got several versions of the 60, and I want to get an original Henry, which is $25,000 plus.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's quite the deal.
Yep.
Just sell about 3 cartons of eggs and you'll be there.
A gallon of milk.
That's almost like a gallon of gas.
Maybe in pandemic prices.
I got the gallon of milk and the 3 cartons of eggs.
Kale's got the chickens and the milk cow.
All right, guys, let's get ready to shut this down. Let's do what we do at the end. Let's start down here at Duke. You got any videos coming out pretty soon? Any shorts, anything?
I'm going to be working on some new shorts here as soon as I get resettled again, figure out what's going on.
Okay. Slick, what do you got coming out soon?
Funny thing, Santee isn't here. I had a competition for whoever was going to buy me a coffee would actually get their content displayed, and he gave me a suggestion, and so I was going to give him some hell on this episode and say he's picked. So it's going to be on gun leather, my gun leather specifically.
Gotcha. Everything black powder, what you got coming out? Anything pretty soon?
I don't know. We're going shooting tomorrow. I'll think of something.
Well, it's always pretty good.
Now that's a typical YouTuber thing to say.
51 Navy and a Hunter's Frock. That's my favorite.
Oh, Plowboy, he's been releasing shorts like crazy. Wait, you got another guns you haven't traded off coming out?
I was looking at them. Yeah, I can probably do a few more of them, but it just whatever hits me, whatever the mood comes up, that's what I'll put out. Sometimes I want to make 2 or 3, 3 or 4, and sometimes I don't care nothing about making them for a while. Can't ever tell.
I noticed the other day you're going to hit 10,000 subs before you know it.
I don't know. It seems like it's taken a while now.
How about you, Classic Guns Today? You just put out 2 videos in one day, so.
Well, it was supposed to be one, but I had to break them into 2 because the phone memory died, and I had to make some adjustments. But anyway, my next video is planning to be 45 Colt shot. I know I said this last video, but I've been kind of occupied over the past year. 45 Colt out of a 4-inch barrel, 5.5-inch barrel, and 7-inch barrel. Put through the chronograph and test it. I'm going to use triple F black powder substitute as well, as I think AR requested. Like,
yeah, I want to see what the velocities are.
Yeah, that'd be nice to know, actually.
That's the plan. So,
Black
and I might even do.
Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I might even do after that. I'm busy with the chronograph lately. Do 357 Magnum out of a 4-inch and 6-inch barrel for comparison. So, that's it.
Very nice. What you got, Black Powder?
1862 pocket navy on the range last Friday of the month. I made a video of that gun a few months ago. Actually, going to be shooting it on video. So a couple weeks.
Very good. That's one of my new all-time favorites. Hey, Snapper, guess what we found out?
Fun.
Our copy is not stainless steel. Turns out you shoot it and leave it for a few days, it rusts.
Well, stainless can rust, but
this is not stainless rust.
It's rust.
It's just in the white.
That is the weirdest gun I've ever seen in my life. I wish we knew more of the history of that thing. This gun he has got like a serial number that would be like a tool room copy or a tool room made, and it's a really nice gun, and it's all in white. So we thought stainless, but I guess it's in white.
Blackie had it nailed down on the condition that it was stainless.
It's definitely not stainless.
Yeah, look at that
weird little gun.
Beautiful Duke Frazier production holster right there. Beautiful feature. But no, it's just in the white. It's not stainless.
That is the weirdest little gun. I still think that's probably somebody's personal, like they made it, somebody's project they made, that they holy crap, they did a great job. Yeah. Or it's some company, like maybe even an early Colts when they were making them as a tool room copy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very early. It's like number 6.
Yeah. And it's like X6.
I missed what you were saying, Black Computer. Did you say the 62 pocket police or 62 pocket Navy?
Pocket Navy.
Yeah. I'll be cool to see it. You see, that's quickly becoming a couple of my favorites. Them too.
Me too.
How about you, AR? Yeah, I know you literally just put one out.
Yeah, that's what I was working at. I was actually finishing that video up right before this started.
Yeah.
But I don't really have any. I mean, I'm going to try and get started on that gun belt, cartridge belt. I might do a video on that. I don't know. I kind of want to get started on that 450 Nitro Express double rifle. So maybe that'll be the next one. I'd never really know. Sometimes I just do what I do, and sometimes I don't,
We want to see that double rifle. I do, so I would appreciate that one.
Oh, it's going to get done. It's just going out in my shop with no heat. It gets awful cold out there,
Yep. All right, Snapper. I know you've been pretty busy here lately.
Well, I actually got a lot of videos filmed that I plan on getting out. Some more updates on the 1860 Army, the original one. And then the project we just worked with on Blackie. I got a couple videos on that, just the nickel plating and whatnot. And then I got a couple shorts planned. And yeah, that'll be fun. And one more thing before we go, before you do your part. Everybody in the chat right here on the video, don't leave once the chat's over. Just stay on for a couple more seconds, okay? There's a reason.
Now I'm interested. All right, Ethan, what do we got coming out? I don't know because since Ethan got back, I don't even make videos anymore. I just do live chats and answer comments. What do we got coming out, Ethan?
Weapons of the 18th century land pattern pistol or the dragoon.
Not the dragoon that we all think of. It's not the Colt dragoon.
The flintlock dragoon.
And that'll be out 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah. Land pattern pistol.
It's going to be a good one. There's a couple of glowy scenes.
Oop, we lost somebody.
Uh-oh.
We lost somebody.
Lost Duke.
We lost Duke again. All right, guys. So History Lovers live chat is officially over. We'll do one again in the summer. And by that time, we'll probably have to do 2 because we'll probably have more than 20 people that have been on the show. But anyway, here's the schedule we got lined out right now. People have agreed to. Of course, this was our big kickoff for the year. But this is the schedule I have at the moment, just letting you guys know. On the 21st, we have Firearms Addict. On the 4th, we will have, and this is still working out all the details, but we'll have Wild West Extravaganza. On the 18th, we have Ethan from I Love Muzzleloading. That should be a big show. On the 4th, we have Slick Six Guns. So that's where we're at up to the 4th. I'll be planning some more out eventually. And somewhere in there, we also have part 4 or 5 of the Indian Wars with Duke, which will hit on an odd week. What are we on now? Is this part 4?
Yeah, I think so.
What are we covering next? You know?
Well, hopefully, if I can get some books in, we'll be covering the end of the 76 war.
Okay. And we'll let you know when that's going to be. It's going to hit on an odd week. We usually do these every other week. But that is all we have for today, guys. We had a great chat here. We had upwards of 60 people for most of it. I appreciate you all coming out here. And as always, what do we say, boys?
Trust in God.
You're fed right. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
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 See y'all later.
Bye.